Kuulate Weebiraadiot. Lihtsalt ja keerutamata. Tere taas, kallid Weebiraadio kuulajad. Saates osalevad eesti.com peatoimetaja Mihkel Johannes Paimla.
Tere kõigile.
Programmi töörühma liikmed Kertu Luisk ja Harry Raudvere.
Tere.
Nõmme Raadio tuntud ajakirjanik Raid.
Tere.
Saates külas Riigikogu liige Kalle Grünthal ja alternatiivsete liikumiste aktivist Peeter Liiv.
Tervitus.
Saadet juhin mina, Maarja Maripuu, tuntud sisulooja ja suunamudijana Konservatiivne Mõtiskleja. Selles saates avaldame vaid oma isiklikke mõtteid ja seisukohti. Alustame saatega. Nädalaga olen mõned mõtted kirja pannud, mille ma nüüd teieni toon ja siin saates läbi arutame. Taevatriibud. Mida nad seal pritsivad? Paljud me oleme näinud Eestimaa taevast ebakorrapäraselt triibulisena. Küsimusi esitades naerdakse tavaliselt küsija välja ning selgitatakse neid triipe kui lennukite poolt tehtud tavapäraste jälgedeni, mis aja jooksul kaovad. Aastal 2010 hakkas USA ajakirjanik Michael J. Murphy asju uurima ning jõudis ülemaailmselt jahmatavatele tulemustele. Taevatriipudega hädas olevates riikides on mulla pH tase muutunud. Muld ja sadevesi ning liustike lumi sisaldab alumiiniumi, baariumi ning straatsiumi ühendeid. Saates tuleb välja, et maa atmosfääriga on juba 50 aastat tehtud erinevaid kliima muutvaid salajasi programme. Aastatel 2005–2010 ehk 5 aastaga oli alumiiniumi kogus 5000 võrra suurenenud. Selle tulemusel sureb normaalne taimestik ning kahjustub loomariik. Metsad muutuvad eriti tuleohtlikuks, kuna on kaetud peene alumiiniumi osakestega. Põllukultuurid ei ole võimelised enam tavapäraselt idanema, vaid on vaja kineetiliselt muundatud GMO seemneid, mida pead soetama ka suurkorporatsioonidelt. Inimesed alumiiniumi ühendeid sisse süües või hingates mürgitavad endid ning Alzheimer ning vähki haigestumine on järsult kasvanud. Oli täheldatud, et kõige suurem taevatriibutamine toimub just NATO liikmesriikides. Pritsimise taga olevad globalistlikud jõud oma poliitiliste motiividega kliima ja maakera päästmise eesmärgil. Kuidas kommenteerite? Ja annaksid siis Kertule sõna esimesena. Saad otsa lahti teha.
Ja aitäh. See chemtrailide teema on üks nendest teemadest, mis näitab hästi selgelt ära, kui suur see mäng on. Et kui meil kohalik siis synoptik, väga populaarne sotsiaalmeedias, kui talle esitati küsimus, et mis pilved need on, siis tema ütles, et need on normaalsed pilved, et kas mingi joonpilv või triippilv, mingi selline asi. Mõtled, tema ju teab ilmast päris palju, et ta on ilmselt üks kõige paremini informeeritud inimesi, mis pilvi on olemas ja tema ütleb, et see on normaalne. Ja sa hakkad mõtlema, kui palju on üldse neid, kellel on ruumi esitada küsimus, mis seal taevas toimub. Ja kui meiesugused selle küsimuse esitavad, siis sealt tulebki vastu see laviin neid, kelle raam mõelda on täpselt nii kitsas, et seal taevas ei saa mitte midagi valesti ega halvasti olla. Ja need uuringu tulemused, mida siin Lätis oli üks uuring tehtud, need on päris traumeerivad, ma ütlen ausalt, et me võime siin rääkida, et nad tahavad meid mürgitada toiduga, kasvatame ise. Aga mida sa kasvatad, kui pinnasesse alumiiniumi näit ajas muudkui kasvab ja üha drastilisemalt kasvab, siis tekib täiesti natuke lootusetu tunne, et mis see lahendus siis on. Poest saad mürgist toitu, kasvatad ise ja mõned ajad tagasi oli ka see, kus siis tembeldati mõned mahepõllupidajad petisteks, sest nende müüdavas tootes leiti aineid, mis mahepõllupidajal ei tohiks seal olla. Kus need sinna tulid? Mina mõtlesin kohe, et see ei saa olla ju üleni nende süü, et need ained seal on. Ma ei usu, et nad salaja panevad neid aineid. Pigem on see sammune teema, mis sealt taevast alla tuleb. Ja see kõik on ju patenteeritud tehnoloogia. See jutt ei vasta tõele. See on normaalne, see kondents lennuki järel siis tuleb. See on lihtsalt kondents. Ja teine ütleb, et see on normaalne pilvetüüp. puht need valed ei klapi omavahel ja siis paned need patendid kõrvale, et eesmärk ongi meie kliimat parendada, päikest varjutada. Selles plaanis mul on väike ettepanek nendele 1% psühhopaatidest, kes neid asju ajavad, leppige valedes kokku. Et ei, need ei ole siis normaalsed pilved, vaid et me päästame planeeti sellega, sest päike läheb järjest kuumemaks, tuleb järjest lähemale, et te kõik siin ära ei kõrbeks grillkanadeks, siis me peame seda tegema. Või siis öelgegi, et need on normaalsed pilved, aga lihtsalt lennukid teevad neid pilvi. Ja tänased inimesed on juba nii siledad oma ajukestega, et nad võib-olla jääksid isegi uskuma, kui piim tuleb poest, siis miks ei võiks pilved tulla lennukist? Miks mitte? Et nad võiks leppida selle ühise vale niimoodi kokku, et meiesugustele ei jääks seda häiritust, et oot, ei klapi ju. Midagi on nagu mäda. Ja nüüd ju hiljaaegu selgus ka see, et põlisrahvad hakkasid sellele teemale vastu ja väga edukalt. Ma hiljem räägin sellest natuke lähemalt sissejuhatusega, ei tahaks pikale minna. Aga hakata läbi nägema seda, et meid nii avalikult mürgitatakse. Ma arvan, et tänastel eestlastel väga vähestel on säilinud see vabadus mõelda ja mõelda veel sellises kohas, kus sa tead, et kui sa sel teemal suu lahti teed, siis sa saad sildi vandenõuteoreetik, lamemaalane, aga kui su sõbrad kõik on kõike muud kui neid nimetusi, sa ei saa seda riski võtta ja siis sa lihtsalt pead vaatama neid lennuk tegi pilve või mis iganes. Nüüd on küll hea õues olla. Päike ei kõrvetagi mind nii palju, et huvitavas maailmas elame, aga ma arvan, et see, et meie oleme, just meie, ma pean silmas ka meid siin 7, et meie oleme sellesse aega sattunud. See ei ole juhuslik. Meil on siit midagi õppida, midagi kaasa võtta hingedena. Ja ma arvan, et see ei ole see, et maailm on kohutav paikene, psühhopaadid on kõik üle võtnud. Natuke ma tajungi seda, et meil tuleb aru saada, mis on meie loomisvõime. Ja kui meie vastas on kogu maailma raha, millega on võimalik ära osta iga omavalitsus, iga valitsus, iga riik, mis meil on? Ja see on tegelikult päris hea küsimus. Me ei saa ju eos alla anda, kuigi jah, ma näen, need, kes on alla andnud, on palju, aga meil siin ei ole ju seda ruumi, seda võimekust, et me saaks alla anda. See lihtsalt ei mahu meisse ära selline otsus. Et mis on see vastus? Et see lihtsalt siuke nagu natuke retooriline küsimus, iga üks enda sees võiks mõelda, et aga miks me oleme selles kuidagi lootusetuna näevas olukorras? Aga sissejuhataks ma siinkohal lõpetaksin, aitäh.
Ja Mihkel?
Jah, tervist siis veel kord, et kui alustada sellest chemtrailist, siis üks väikene näide. Vist oli see 1. märtsikuu laupäev, kus lubati vähese vahelduva pilvistusega ilma ja mis oli tulemus? Kogu päev oli lauspilves ja seda prognoosi mitte kusagil ära ei muudetud ja oligi niimoodi, et kogu päev oli kas niisugune kerge sabin või siis lihtsalt selline pilvine ilm ja ilmateenistusel mitte miski ei muutunud. Ja nüüd, halloo, seltsimehed Kliimaministeeriumist, ma ei tea, kus iganes. Miks te meile valetate, et te lubate meile päikest? Aga võt, ei tulnud seda päikest, tuli läbi selle keemia triibutamise pilvine taevas. Nüüd natuke kaugemale minnes, siin olid mõned kuud tagasi, oli see veebruaris vist, jah, kus Kalle Grünthal ainukesena seda eelnõud kaitses ja ma kuulasin, kuidas Igor Taro, vabamüürlane, tegi kohe selle eelnõu maha ja see eelnõu saadigi sõna otseses mõttes prügikasti. Aga ometigi tavainimesed, nagu me siin kõik 7, kes oleme, me näeme seda probleemi, et see on olemas. Ja kui võtta sedasi aluseks, siis praegu, kui 4. aprillil nüüd eile triibutati, salvestus on 5. aprillil, siis täna vastukäiguna tuli terve hulk lund maha. Ja kas juhuseid on olemas? Minu meelest mitte. Ja kui nüüd võtta selle järgi, mis siin välja toodi mahepõllumajanduse kohta, et seal olid keemilisi aineid ohtralt palju, siis see minu meelest kõnelebki sellest, et mullaviljakus on väga tõsises ohus, et põhimõtteliselt me jõuame sellesse faasi, kus võibki ühel hetkel olla, et muld ei suuda enam vilja nagu toota. Ja kui nüüd võtta seda aluseks, siis kus kohast me üldse seda tervet toitu saame, et on võib-olla väheseid poode, kus üldse midagi on, ma ei teagi, kas varsti üldse selliseid poode on, et turgudel müüakse ka mingil määral neid juba keemiaga immutatud tooteid, kas või need, mis taevast alla pritsitakse. Ja siis lõpuks jõuamegi sinna, et me võime siin kasvatada kõike sellist, aga kuidas me siis seda toitu saame tervislikult tarbida, kui juba aastaid on NATO sõdurid oma lennukitega niimoodi sõna otseses mõttes meie taevast pihustanud igatepidi ja lõpuks siis jõuame sinna välja, et loetud aastatega võib isegi olla nii, et meie enda toiduviljakus ongi otsakorral, et kasvatame palju tahame, aga sellest enam ei pruugi piisata. Ja teine moment on see, et kui taevast pidevalt pihustatakse, siis selle võrra vähem on ju päikesevalgus. Ja lõpuks siis ongi see, et mida vähem on päikesevalgust, seda vähem on ka seda soojust, mis kõrgemalt sfäärist eraldub siia maa peale. Ja üks oluline ohukoht on siin ka veel, et mida vähem on päikeselisi ilmasid ja mida rohkem pihustatakse taevast, seda tõenäolisemaks muutub, et inimeste luustik hakkab sõna otseses mõttes hõrenema ja tekivad sellised ootamatud haigestumised, vähk toodi välja ja siis seesamune luustiku hõrenemine, vist oli see võõrapärane nimetus, võin eksida, artriit või mingi selline teema. Ja lõpuks siis me peame juba võitlema reaalselt oma eksistentsiaalsuse eest, et kas jõuab see inimestel tarkus kohale ühe või teise inimese kaudu, kes on ise seda kõike kogenud või talle jõuab see mingi kolmandal viisil kohale. Lõppkokkuvõttes ma olen kategooriliselt vastu selle, et me peame kohustus korras hakkama tarbima mingisuguste miljardäride toodangut, kus on geenmuundatud ained sees ja üldse sellised mürgid. Et mina näen siin me peame suutma selles hulluses, mis meil siin praegu genereeritud on ja kus see vale on tõde ja tõde on vale, selline analoogia. Me peame suutma jääda terve mõistuse juurde ja rääkima seda, mida me südames ja oma hinges tunneme. Et see oleks minu poolt iselik kõik. Aitäh.
See luude õrenemine on siis osteoporoos.
See ka jah, et see on üks.
Keeruline sõna. Annaksid edasi Andres Raidile.
See on nii keeruline teema, kuna midagi käega katsutavat ju ei ole, mingisuguseid adekvaatseid või usaldusväärseid andmeid ka eriti mitte. Aga neid valgeid triipe on ju tegelikult veetud kogu aeg taevasse. Nii kaua, kui on olnud seda aega, kui lennukid nii kõrgel sõidavad või lendavad, siis nende sabadest on ala lõpmata see valge triip välja ilmunud ja see hakkab erinevatel kõrgustel tulema ja sealt ta tuleb. Algselt on ta muidugi sisaldanud kõikvõimalikke kütusejääke ja tont teab mida veel. Loomulikult tekivad õhus on niikuinii kemikaale, ükskõik kui puhas see õhk on. Seal loomulikult toimuvad ka omad reaktsioonid välja ja nii edasi, nii edasi. Nüüd, kui minna selle, et keegi gaasitab, keegi mürgitab, siis loomulikult on võimalik vaadata taevasse. Mis need taevatriibud seal niisama on. Me võime sinna ju midagi segada ja kasutada seda oma mingisugustel kuritahtlikel eesmärkidel, mida loomulikult on tegelikult tehtud. Sellepärast ma mäletan, et Hispaania mõned aastad tagasi Hispaania peaminister suisa oli sunnitud tunnistama, et selliseid eksperimente on tehtud, kuivõrd ulatuslikult või kuivõrd palju või kus maailma otstest sellest ta ei rääkinud, aga oli sunnitud tunnistama, et jah, tõepoolest, sellepärast, et ta lükati mingisuguse otsese või selliste tõendite ette, kus oli võetud proovid ja kus oli tehtud, jah, tõepoolest. Kuivõrd see kogu aeg ja süstemaatiliselt toimub, mul ettekujutus puudub, sellepärast, et vaevalt, et nüüd selle maailma mürgitamisel on ainult üks põhjus ja see on siis sealt taevast alla lastav sodi. Neid on siin maa peal küll ja küll, kõikvõimalikke muidki. Sellepärast, et kui lendab sealt samast mingisuguste roheliste foorumilt kodu poole, kas mingisugune vendade kohide paar, Monsanto teadupärast, või mingisugune teine miljardär, kes on kokku ajanud tänu sellele hüsteeriale endale miljardeid ja võib-olla isegi triljoneid, siis see tema lennuk ei ole üldse paha, ei mõju pahasti. Aga siin kuskil vaikselt viljapõldudel popsuv traktor, see on ju kurjast. See tähendab, ühel juhul on niimoodi, teisel juhul on naamodi. Mitte kedagi ei häiri absoluutselt, et kuskil maailma otstes käib sõda, kui palju sealt igasugust sodi maailma ilmaruumi väljastub. See ei huvita ka mitte kedagi, küll aga huvitab, et lehm on selline tegelane, seal lehmavastases kampaanias on mingisugune kunstlihatootja taga ja nii edasi ja nii edasi. See tähendab, ma näeksin seda kompleksina, muidugi on konkreetne, ega keegi pole öelnud, et see ka paha oli, siiamaani pole öeldud. Kui Vietnamis ajas Agent Orange oli üks niisugune, teadupärast üks niisugune huvitav gaas, pärast seda läksid inimesed hulluks, osad surid maha ja taimestik lõpetas tegevuse, ei olnud ka CO2 küsimust enam mitte mingisugust. Agent Orange, palju inimesi ära tapeti, palju loodust muudeti täiesti, noh, ta enam ei olegi loodus, lihtsalt mingid varred jäid püsti ja oligi kõik. See oli niisugune konkreetne tegevus, aga keegi pole ka öelnud, et see kuidagi moodi paha oli. See lihtsalt oli napalm täpselt samamoodi ja paljud muudki asjad. Nii et ma ei oleks selle pooldaja, et ainult sealt ülevalt tuleb ja kogu aeg tuleb. Ma ei tea, äärmused on igal juhul minu meelest midagi taolist, mis peavad mul muidugi olema, sellepärast et nendest lähtudes jõuame selle päris niisuguse tõese pildi juurde ka välja, aga võt, on naturaalne saaste ja loomulikult on olemas kunstlik, mida aidatakse kaasa, kas või selle CO2-ga. Kui suur kisa selle ümber on? Ainult ühele küsimusele ei taha mitte keegi vastata. Kui palju seda siis nüüd ilmaruumis rohkem on? Kui palju seda rohkem on nüüd? 0,04% oli enne. Kui palju seda siis nüüd on? Igasugused graafikud, igaüks võib vaadata, mis olid temperatuurid 1930 näiteks, siis oli tõesti kuum. Ja me oleme praegu jääajas ju tegelikult tagasi, sellepärast et kunagi Antarktika koha peal näiteks ja Arktika koha peal oli ilus roheline loodus. No, äkki jõuame sinna kuidagi moodi tagasi või. Tähendab, ma ei võtaks neid asju nii üks üheselt, aga fakt on see, et nii pea kui kuskil nähakse mingisugust omakasu võimalust või vaenlase mahavõtmise võimalust, siis praegune teadus on küllalt arenenud selle jaoks ja inimene küllalt kuritahtlik selle jaoks, et seda kasutamata jätta.
Nõustun, et annaks edasi Harrile, et Harrile on meie kliimaga võrreldes on juba kliima soojenemine toimub, vaata, lilled kõik õitsevad ja.
Jah, tere head sõbrad ja minu poolt siit kaugelt maalt kõitsvate lillede keskelt. Jah, mina olen oma olemuselt üks vastik vanamees ja tõeline pragmaatik ja ükskõik, mis mulle nagu räägitakse või mida mulle püütakse selgeks teha või tõestada, siis radikaalse inimesena tahan mina minna alati juurteni ja jõuda nende tagajärgede ja põhjuste ja nende omavahelise selle põhjusliku seose juurde. Ja ma võin öelda, et kui mina noor olin, siis ma täiesti kindlalt mäletan, sest et ma võin vana olla, aga nii seniilne ma veel ka ei ole ja Alzheimerit tänu jumalale pole ka veel diagnoosid. Nii et ma mäletan kohe kindlasti, et selliseid sabasid lennukitel taga ei olnud. See on fakt. Muidugi olid, aga mitte sellised. Ja nad ei muutunud selliseks ja nad laustusid väga kiiresti ära ja muidugi siin võib olla ka põhjused selleks, et lennukid lendavad kiiremini, lendavad kõrgemini, võib-olla on teistsugused kütuselisandid, ma ei tea. Aga kui me siit vaatame nüüd natukene siis Mihkli seisukohta, et kui ta ütles, et põhimõtteliselt NATO riikides on need sabad sellised ja ega need NATO riigid ongi sellised tööstusriigid ja ega me ju tegelikult ei tea, palju me ise läbi selle tööstusrevolutsiooni, mida me siin nüüd kahe käega toetame ja ütleme, et läbi majanduskasvu tekib meie õnn meile õue peale. Et palju see tegelikult siis keskkonda saastab ja loomulikult oleme Andresega 100% nõus, et neid kahjusid, keskkonnakahjusid, mida nüüd näiteks praegu põhjustab kas või see sama Ukraina sõda, kes on seda kokku hinnanud, sest need sajad ja tuhanded tonnid, mis sinna kõiksuguseid kemikaale, mürke õhku paisatakse, see on ju kolossaalne. Ja fakt on see, et nad tõusevad ka atmosfääri kõrgematesse kiitidesse ja liiguvad umbes nii nagu Sahara torm Euroopasse ja ka siia Kanaaridele, mida kutsutakse siin hellitavalt ka liimaks. Et kui Sahara poolt torm tuleb, siis ei ole isegi kõrgemat vulkaani tippu näha, vaid kõik mattub sellisesse roosakasse, udusse, vinesse ja ütleme niimoodi, et päris hambal ei krigis, aga tegelikult ega ta ebameeldiv ei ole. Ja teistpidi veel, et kui me ütleme, et vaata, et ilmateenistus valetas meile, ütles, et ei ole, tuli lund ja lubas ilusat ilma, aga ei tulnud ilusat ilma. No ikka juhtub, ilmateenistus paneb puusse täpselt nii nagu enamus meie ametiasutusi, sellepärast, et ega sealt ju midagi head nahka ei ole oodata, sellepärast, et üldine suhtumine on juba selline. Ja kui me nüüd räägime veel täpsemalt sellest ilmast, siis vaadake, on olemas ilmaradarid, mis siis peaks päris täpselt prognoosima meile ilma ja Eestis on selline ilmaradar on Harkus on olemas ja Sürgaveres on olemas ja nemad siis saadavad oma kiirekesed taevas ja võtavad sealt vastu kõik, mida sealt võtta on ja siis oskavad meile prognoosida päris täpselt. Ja kõige naljakam selle juures on muidugi see, et ka Saaremaale taheti panna siis selline ilmaradar püsti, mis täielikult täiendaks siis neid vaatlusandmeid. Aga kohalikud inimesed tõusid tagajärgedele püsti, ütlesid, et neile pole loomulikult mitte midagi sellist vaja, radar kiirgab palju hullemat kiirgust ja ei ole vaja, et näiteks põllumees saaks täpselt teada, millal võib veel heina teha, enne kui äikesepilv kohale jõuab või millal meremees peab ruttu kaldale tulema, sest torm on tulemas. Ühesõnaga sellised pisikesed naljaskad nüansid. Ja kui me nüüd räägime sellest toidu muuntumisest, siis see GMO probleem on olnud ju läbi aegade ikkagi ju päevakorras ja ma nii mäletan, see oli mõned aastad tagasi, kus Ameerikas oli suured probleemid, kus need suurfirmad, kes siis kasutasid GMO-di just nimelt maisi kasvatamisel ja kui need GMO mais siis õitses, siis mesilased käisid sealt nende tõlvikute peal ja õite peal ja siis nad läksid talumehe maa peale ka, kes seal eemal oma maisi kasvatas, kellel ei olnud GMO mais ja siis võeti selle talumehe maisist proovid ja öeldi, et sa tõuk oled varastanud meie GMO tähtsat seemet ja koostist ja nüüd võtad kätte ja pead meile meeletult trahve hakkama maksma. Tähendab, siukest tsirkust me oleme kõik näinud, kuigi mina mõtlesin tollel hetkel see, et talumees oleks peal ise minema ja andma kogu selle kupatuse kohtusse, sest tema puhas mais rikuti ära selle GMO geeniga või ma ei tea, mis selle maisiga tehti, aga fakt on see, et probleemid olid taevani ja suured kohtuasjad olid püsti ja väga paljud talulikud laastusid ja nende maad liikusid siis ikka suurkorporatsioonidele, nii nagu tavaliselt see ikkagi kombeks on ja see selleks. Ja ega inimeste alatustel ei ole tegelikult piire ja ei ole lollusel piire, ei ole alatusel piire, kui on võimalik kasu saada, siis et sellele küsimusele võib-olla nüüd nagu objektiivset hinnangut anda, tuleks liikuda raha liigutamise suunas või ajada raha jälgi ja teada, kus see kõik lõpuks nagu välja läheb või välja jõuab. Ja ka ma vaatasin ka neid filme ja kõik, mis siis on nagu räägitud ja mida me siin ka saate alguses rääkisime. Ja minul tekkis üks selline küsimus. Et kui me kõik väidame, et hirmsasti mürgitatakse ja alumiiniumi kogused meie looduses on nii suurelt tõusnud ja saastehulgad on suurenenud, siis miks ei võetud näiteks nööbist kinni nendel, kes siis praktiliselt seda teha võiks? Lendurid, lennukompaniid, praktiliselt nii, et kust siis nagu väidetavalt see saast siia ilma sisse lastakse. Vot sellest ei räägitud mitte ühtegi sõna ja vot see teeb mind natukene ettevaatlikuks, et ütleme veel kord, radikaalina oleks ma läinud kõik esimesena nende juurde ja hakanud uurima just nimelt neid agregaate, seda tehnikat, seda tehnoloogiat, neid masinaid, millega siis seda väidetavalt, seda saastusi õhku paisatakse. Ja ma olen täiesti kindel, et ma oleksin tuvastanud need asjad, kui ma oleksin nii suurelt ja nii laiapõhjaliselt selle uuringu ette võtnud. Aga praegusel juhul oleme konstateerinud ainult fakti, et saaste hulk on suurenenud, mõõtmiste tulemusena on see fikseeritud ja tegelikult kogu see kokkuvõte sellega ju minu meelest ainult piirdub. Meil ei ole ju konkreetset fakti või keegi ei ole seda fakti välja toonud, et näed, see lennuk, selle lennuki peal on need asjad, need seadmed või sellesse lennuki kütusesse on sisse segatud mingisugust sellist komponenti, mingist alumiiniumioksiidi võib-olla või mingit kristalli või mis siis üleval kondenseerub või tekitab siis sellist efekti. Need on ju võimalik kõik maapealsete proovidega väga lihtsalt tuvastada ja välja selgitada, kas see asi on niimoodi või see asi ei ole naamoodi. Et nii kaua, kui me ei lähtu just nimelt võib-olla õigetest suunistest ja õigetest otsadest on väga raske hakata andma mingisuguseid kapitaalseid või fundamentaalseid hinnanguid üldse sellele probleemile, minu meelest. Aitäh!
Ja, selle samuse USA ajakirjaniku siis film tuleb ka Weebiraadio Lihtsalt ja keerutamata selle saate külge, ma lisan. Ja see ajakirjanik nüüd selles samuses filmis, jah, ta ei käinud neid lennukeid taga ajamas, aga ta läks USA sinna parlamenti neid poliitikuid taga ajama, kes kõik hirmsalt jooksid eest ära ja mingi vandenõulane ajab taga. Jah, Harry.
Jah, kui me ütleme nüüd näiteks vandenõuga, siis me vaatame, kuidas nagu poliitikute suhtumist. Näiteks, kui Kalle Grünthal Riigikogus midagi ütleb, isegi ta ütleb väga õigeid asju ja sisukaid ja konkreetseid asju, siis naertakse ta nii või naa või teisiti välja ja mida sa siis nendest Ameerika poliitikutest saada tahad. Ma võiks veel öelda, et meie Riigikogu vaatamata oma kapatsiteedile IQ tasemele on näiteks Ameerika kongressi kõrval ikkagi lausa kuld. Ei maksaks siit nagu midagi loota, et poliitikute suust või sulest midagi mõistlikku kunagi tulematuks. Aitäh!
Ja annakski siis edasi sõna Kalle Grünthalile, kes ajab samat asja ka Riigikogu tasemel, et mikrofon on sinu, Kalle.
Tule tänud, jah, aga ega ma sinna selle teema juurde muidu poleks sattunud, kui niivõrd palju inimestelt tuli kaebusi ja palveid ja nii edasi, aga mis on siis Riigikogulase tööülesanne seista oma rahva eest ja tuli ka saadeti massiliselt, põhjus oli tegelikult selles, et nad ei saanud kuskilt mujalt abi. Nad olid korduvalt pöördunud siis Keskkonnaametisse ja siis oli seal võetud seal näiteks Urmas Sepp, loomapidaja, kes ütles, et näed, et seal on lumi on kaetud mingisuguse sinaka asjaga, mida ei tohiks tegelikult olla. Tema loomadel tal on nagu maheloomandus on mingisugused maksas on mingisugused probleemid ja nii edasi. Ja siin oli ka veel teisi siis selliseid, kes nagu ütleme, teadsid midagi rääkida. Üks härrasmees oli näiteks jälginud, kes elab ka selles piirkonnas, kus ütleme, need lennukitriibud väga tihedalt üle käivad. Et ütles, et oli siis laud oli tal, siis oli öö läbi oli väljas ja ütles, et siis kui ta vaatas siis tolmu siis nagu päikesevalguses, siis ta tõmbas sõrmaga üle, siis oli seal sellised väikesed valged läikivad täpid. Ja me ju teame tegelikult, et ainult on 2 keemilist elemente, mis paistavad välja siis päikesevalguseks. See on siis kvartsliiv, millest tehakse siis klaasi ja teine, nagu siin on juba korduvalt kõlanud ka siin eelkõneleja suust, on siis sama alumiiniumoksiid ja selle väga väikesel kristallid on selline läiki pind. Kui nüüd päris täpselt öelda, siis on ta alumiinium 203. Ja muidugi ka, eks ma siis ka ise hakkasin neid asju probleeme jälgima ja kuna ma elan Paides ja minu kodumajas käivad üle ka need lennukid, siis tõusin hommikul varakult üles seal 6.15, vaatan taevas selge, Tallinna poolt tuleb lennuk, saba on taga, aga läheb kuskil 10-15 minutit mööda ja siis see jälg lihtsalt ajub. Ehk siis ma väidan seda, et siin võib olla see teema, et on veeauru tekkega lennuki mootori töötamisel ja aja jooksul see jälg lihtsalt kaob. Vaatasin siis lennuradari pealt ka ära, kus ta tuli ja siis mingi tunni või paari pärast vaatan, üks teine lennukisaba on tekkinud ja see oli siis selline, mis oli siis nagu jäävalt oli alles ja mis hakkas isegi ütleme veel laienema. Ja eks sai ka natuke seda tausta uuritud ja siis ühed materjalid ütlevad seda, et tegemist on spetsiaalse nanolisandiga lennuki kütuses ja kui see nüüd toimub see põlemine seal, siis need nanoosakesed langevad siis kuskil 1 tunni jooksul maapinnale, sest kõik nanoosaks said põlemootoris ära ja metallidel ei ole teatavasti ka põlemisvõimet, see on siis seega nad kaasatud komponentidele, mis aitavad lihtsalt kütusel paremini põleda. See oleks nagu ütleme selline loogiline seletus, sellepärast et mis toimuks nagu lennuki kütuse põlemisel. Aga küsimus on nagu selles, et kui nüüd oleks ka tegemist nende nanoosakestega, mis tegelikult peaksid alla langema, muidugi siin mõjutab erinevad tegurid mõjutavad ütlema, kas õhutemperatuur, samuti ka selle veeauru sisaldus selles õhus, et see kõik võtab kindlasti palju aega. Enne kui ma nüüd lähen nende päris lennukitriipude juurde, siis, aga teatavasti küsitate kohe kindlasti, et miks on need ja siis teisest metallid nanoosakesed ohtlikud, aga põhjus on selles, et nad põhjustavad, siin ennem oli ka, ma mäletan, Mihkel rääkis ja keegi oli veel, et põhjustavad haigusi ja siis on, ütleme, see toidu rikuvad ära. Aga see on muidugi kõik on õige, aga küsimus on hoopis selles, et need samad nanoosakesed põhjustavad sellised pöördumatud haigusi, mida ütleme, et organism ei suuda kõrvaldada. Ja seda haigust nimetatakse siis pneumokonioosiks ja see on siis seotud hingamise ja kopsudega, sest väga paljud inimesed, kes on mulle kirjutanud, öelnud, et tegelikult pärast seda on väga raske hingata ja enesetunne pole just kõige parem. Mis asi see pneumokonioos on? Tegemist on siis sellise kroonilise haigusega, mis areneb tavaliselt järk-järgult ja haiguse kulg sõltub sealt siis sellest töötingimusest ehk siis töökoha tolmuastmest ja siis tolmu koostisest. Ja sellel on veel siis ka sellised kaasnevad haigused, nagu on hingamisteede, seal hulgas ka siis tuberkuloosi ja südame-veresoonkonna haigused ja ma ei hakka rohkem selle arstiteaduse juurde minema. Ja siin tekivad ka erinevad need komplikatsioonid, seal on kopsupõletik, tuberkuloos, krooniline bronhiit ja võib tekkida ka siis kopsutsirroos. Ja teine probleem, mis on see, et selles ravimatu haiguste perekonnas on siis see, mis on otseselt seotud siis selle alumiiniumoksiidiga, mida siin on eelnevalt ka räägitud. Ja selle haiguse nimi on siis aluminoos ehk tuntud ka alumiiniumkops, mis on siis piirav kopsuhaigus, mille põhjustab siis kokkupuude alumiiniumi sisaldava tolmuga. Ja see võib põhjustada siis sellist haigust nagu kopsufibroos. Ja see oli ka nüüd tegelikult see põhjus, miks ma julgesin üldse selle eelnõuga välja minna, sellepärast kui ma oleks öelnud, et lõpetage see taevatriibutamine, siis ma ei oleks isegi selle eelnõuga kuskilegi jõudnudki. Ja ma kasutasin siis sellist varianti, et ma esitasin eelnõu, mis seondus siis atmosfääri õhukaitse seadusega ja sõnastasin ta siis selliselt, et keelata siis Eesti Vabariigi territooriumi õhuruumis lennukites nanokomponente kui energialisandite vedelat süsiniku, vesinikkütuse, kütuse lisandi kasutamine. See oli mul nagu ütleme selline ainukene legaalne tee saada siis nii-öelda selle probleemiga siis üldse siis nii-öelda siis selle komisjoni ette. Kui ma olin selle esitanud, siis muidugi Keskkonnaministeerium ütles, et ei, et siin kirjalikus pöördumises siin ei ole mingi probleem ei ole ja kõik on hästi, hakkasid turismile rõhuma, et peaks ikkagi arendama seda turismi, see toob raha sisse, aga küsimus oli tegelikult selles, et meil nagu puudub nagu võimalus, ütleme Eestil, me räägime praegu jutumärkidest iseseisvast Eestist, ütleme selle mootorikütuse, lennukikütuse lisandit üldse midagi ette võtta, sest nad peavad vastama siis erinevate rahvusvaheliste standarditele ning kasutamisel tuleb ka siis Euroopa Liidu jurisdiktsioon ja ka Euroopa Liidu seadusandlus, nii et need küsimused selle tasandil ei ole põhimõtteliselt võimalik isegi lahendada. Aga enne kui see eelnõu sinna jõudis, siis olid inimesed pöördunud ka Keskkonnaametisse ja sealt siis nad ütlesid niimoodi, et ega see lennukid, triibud ei ole päris normaalsed, kui üldse, et nemad ei saa siin midagi teha ja siin peab riik sekkuma. Siis esitasin selle eelnõu ja tuli siis mulle kutse ja ma siis teatasin 2 korral, helistasin veel sinna komisjoni, kelle juht on siis keskkonnakomisjoni juht on siis Igor Taro, helistasin ja ütlesin, et mulle tuleb kaasa üks nende selle huvigrupi esindaja, Urmas Sepp on ta nimi, ja ta sõitis kuskilt 100 kilomeetri kauguselt Tallinnasse ja ma olin teatanud, et ma tulen ja siis läks triangel muidugi lahti. Süvariik läks närvi kui kurat ja hakkas algusest peale seda probleemi naeruvääristama ja maha suruma. Kõigepealt teatas Igor Taro, et ei, mis see tähendab, et mul ei ole keegi rääkinud, selles mõttes ma ei peagi sulle rääkima, ma helistasin sekretariaati, komisjoni sekretariaati, ei saa, tema ei saa siin olla. Ma ütlesin, kuidas ma saan tõendid esitada, kui inimene on siin ja ta saab rääkida sellest, millest on probleemid. Ütleme seda, ma ei hakka seda detailselt seda edasi tooma, küll aga eks ma seal tegin päris kõvat häält ja nagu te teate, ma suudan seda vahel teha ka, kui mind ikka päris tigedaks ajatakse. Aga lõppkokkuvõttes oli siis see, et üks oluline tõendiallikas lihtsalt visati ukse taha ja ilma tõendusmaterjalideta siis pidin siis seda asja seal kaitsma. Mis oli väga huvitav muidugi, lennundusameti esindaja oli kohal, ta ei olnud üldse väga sükene üleolev ega midagi, oli näost punane ja väga vaikse häälega rääkis seal, ei poolda ja ma nägin, et teema on väga sensitiivne, et ta nagu püüab seda vältida, ta saab aru, et ma räägin õiget asja, aga ta ei saa midagi teha, sest tema saab kellegi käest palka. Ja sinna paika ta siis jäi ja siis muidugi hakati seal veel naeruvääristama, siis läks jutt seal selle peale, et need nanokomponendid ja siis ka alumiiniumosakesed langevad maha ja need mõjutavad inimese tervist ja siis muidugi Riigikogu pesamuna Hanna Lahe hakkas siis oma tarkust näitama ja ütles, et aga öelge mulle palun, et millised eksperdid kinnitavad, et need osakesed jõuavad siis inimorganismi. Ma vaatasin talle otsa, mõtlesin, et issand jumal, mitmendas klassis õpetati veeringkäiku looduses. Et ja ütlesin selle otse välja ka talle. Ja muidugi väga komisjonis toetasid mind siis 3 inimest selle otsuse saali tähendab, et otsus saata ka teisele lugemisele, ülejäänud olid vastu ja kui ma siis seal ka saalis seda kaitsesin, siis üritati ka, tähendab, mulle vett peale tõmmata. Muidugi kõige jõhkramalt tegi seda muidugi Igor Taro, kes siis, ma ei tea, ma ütlen, et tahtmata midagi öelda halvasti tema kohta, aga ma ütlen, et sellised inimesed aitasidki küüditamisele eestlaste hulgas kaasa. See oli minu selline ütlus ja selle ma ütlesin välja ka tegelikult ka Riigikogu istungisaalis. Nii et ma ei tea, ma olen nüüd siin pikalt pannud juba, et las siis teised ka räägivad.
Ja annakski edasi siis Peeter Liivile, et Peeter Liiv kunagi, kui see Eestis aktuaalseks sai, ta alustas selle töörühmaga tööd, hetkel ta sellega aktiivselt ei tegele, aga tal on piisavalt teadmisi meile nii-öelda selgust majja tuua, et mis see tegelikult nüüd siis toimub. Jah, Peeter, mikrofon on sinu.
Jah, ma ei ole viimase aja uuringutega, viimaste aastate uuringutega kursis, aga 10 aastat tagasi ma vaatasin korraks ise ka uuesti sinna kodulehele puhastaevas.ee, tõesti siin esimesed sellised materjalid olid näiteks siin veebruarist 2014, näiteks 6. veebruaril 2014 Kanal 2 reporter käsitles siis keemiapilvede teemat juba ja siis oli samas kuus siis me lasime käiku ka petitsiooni lõpetada aerosool pritsimised Eestimaa taevas, mis kogus siis 1083 häält tol ajal. Ja veel mingi saade oli, üks hetk, ma kohe vaatan. See oli Reporter. Ja siis oli meie esindaja oli ka siin ühes ärapanijas, oli jah, aprillikuus 2014. Nii et tollal juttu oli nendest asjadest. Muidugi tollal mingit ametlikku tunnustamist ei olnud, nagu täna on juba olemas, eks ole, mitmelt poolt, et see on ikkagi kliima soojenemise ärahoidmiseks. Aga tegutseb, ma vaatasin üsna aktiivselt siin MTÜ Eesti avatud grupp Facebookis, kus oli ka mitmeid selliseid uuemaid teaduslikke tõendeid, paistab, et üles pandud. Ja loomulikult need lennukisabasid, nagu siin oli jutt, on kahte tüüpi oli juba tollal, et üks on see tõesti eeskätt veeaur, mis on teatud pikkusega lennuki järel, ta ei ole pikem, ta üsna ruttu nagu, ma ei tea, mis ta siis täpselt teeb, kas need kristallid lendavad laiali siis või? Ja teine on siis, mis jääb. Ja tollaegset uuringute järgi see, mis jääb, see on selliste nanokiudude peal, mis on kleepuvad ja mõnikord neid langes alla ka selliste kämpudena. Need olid sellised kleepuvad kämbud nagu, aga kui nad on eraldi, kui nad nüüd langevad alla taevas, siis on meenutavad ämblikuvõrke, nad on isegi peenemad natukene, aga kui vastu päikest nii-öelda õige nurga alt vaadata, siis on näha. Mina olen ka näinud neid, vaadanud niimoodi. Ja et ei ole nüüd mingeid fotosid, ikka on, vilepuhujaid on üsna palju olnud, igasugu fotosid on tehtud, mõned võib-olla ka niisama eksituseks, et juhtida kõrvale tähelepanu, küllap seal oli ka palju autentset. Ja üks huvitav asi oli ka see, et paljudel lennukitel see saba tuleb välja mitte sealt, kus mootor on, vaid eraldi teistest tabadest hoopiski. Et see on ka väga selgelt näha olnud igal pool. Ja tol ajal oli niimoodi, et me tegime tänavapikette, me siis saatsime kirju ametkondadele, isegi tegime analüüse siin keskkonnauuringute laboris mõned. Aga siis ta pikapeale vaibus nagu ära, tulemust nagu ei olnud erilist ja me panime tähele, et nädalavahetustel ei olnud nagu keemiapilvi või vähemalt üks oli nagu puhkepäev, siis kas see oli laupäev või pühapäev. Taevas oli sinine, puhas, oli ainult tavalisi lennukeid võib-olla seal. Aga praegu, kui vaadata, praktiliselt iga päev on midagi kuskil. Kas siis on pool päeva puhas või... Ja nagu siin Kalle ütles, nad ikka hajuvad niimoodi ja katavad terve taeva selle häguga ära. Omal ajal muide hoiatati, et kui ikkagi pilv pea kohale lastakse, et siis olge toas, ärge minge välja. Et nii-öelda pähe ei kukuks. Ja ilmselt tol ajal juba oli kahtlus, et need pilved on seotud ka kliimamanipulatsioonidega, mitte ainult mingite muude eesmärkidega. Ja võimalik, et seal tuuakse ka filmis näide, kuidas seal Californias, eks ole, keset suve, juuni-juulikuus, kus temperatuur oli üle 20, teatas Rockefelleri ilmateade, et vot siin mõne päeva pärast hakkab lund sadama. Ja lennukid siis jälle seal lendasid öössel ja sadaski lund. Sadas sellist rasket justkui keemilist lund, mis siis murdis seal puid rahvusparkides ja kleepuv selline. Ja võimalik, et keemiapilved on seotud ka haarpiga. Vanast oli, haarp oli ainult Alaskal vist, aga nüüd on need üle maailma igal pool laiali. Ja seda saab kasutada teadupärast siis ka kliimarelvana. Et siin on ka, kui te vaatate sinna Facebooki gruppi, seal on ka näha neid laevu ja neid seadmeid, siis mis on olnud siis vastavates piirkondades, kui on toimunud maavärisemised. Ja siis muidugi nendes filmides mul on meeles, et mida need metallid teevad, nad leelistavad pinnast. Meil ikkagi ütleme männimetsad, seal on vist pH on kuskil võib-olla 5,5,5, eks ju, ta on happeline. Ja seal olid ka mingid puuliigid, mis üsna ruttu hakkasid nagu välja surema siis seal Ameerika mingites USA piirkondades. Ja lapsepõlvest ma muidugi mäletan ja ka hiljem maailmas hakati massiliselt pritsima ikkagi 2000-ndate alguses. Kõigepealt siis, ma ei tea, Ameerika Ühendriikides, Euroopas ja võib-olla miks meie selle 2014 vist rajasime selle MTÜ, et siis ka oli Eestis juba, ma ei tea, aasta või paar juba silmnähtavalt pritsitud, et siis oli nagu aeg siis proovida midagi teha. Ja muidugi, kuidas see puudele mõjub, tollel oli ka üks synoptik, ma ei mäleta tema nime kahjuks, kes oli spetsialiseerunud sellele, et ta selgitas neid uusi pilveliike. Me ka vaidlesime temaga ja ta väitis, ei, need on looduslikud täiesti aga hiljem ta kadus nagu ära. Ja muidugi, kui nüüd puid vaadata, siis juba tol ajal paistis silma, et näiteks Tallinnas puudest said pihta kõigepealt kastanid. Näiteks Viru hotelli juures, Kaubamäe poolses ääres, seal niimoodi terves reas kuivasid. Muidugi mingi kahju võis olla ka suurenenud liiklusest, linnaliiklusest. Aga kastanid igal pool linnas kõige rohkem said pihta. Pärnad olid nagu vastupidavamad. Ja kui nüüd vaadata Eestimaa loodust, siis me näeme, kuidas massiivselt kuivad kuused igal pool. Et ilmselt nad ka on siis nõrgemad sellele, et männid peavad vastu, kased peavad vastu. Võib-olla see saarepuu haigus on ka kuidagi seotud, sest et kui puu immuunsüsteem nüüd nõrgeneb, siis ta jääbki haigeks, siis tulevad röövikud kallale ja nii edasi. Et muidugi teadlased panid tähele ainult seda, et seal oli mingi haigus või seal olid mingid röövikud, eks ole. Aga seda eelmist põhjust nagu tol ajal ei olnud kuulda, et millest see võis olla põhjustatud, et miks äkki nüüd röövikud kallale tulid. Nii et nii palju võib-olla algatuseks minu poolt. Ja veel üks asi veel. Võt ma mäletan jällegi varasematest aegadest, kui ilusad olid puudelehed sügisel, 1000 eri värvis nii-öelda siis. Nüüd viimasel aastal oli jälle vahtralehed, olid isegi korralikumad ja mõnikord nad täitsa imest, nagu ma vaatan mingeid välismaa pilte kuskil, kus on sellised värvilised metsad veel alles. Et meil on ikkagi vahtrad on sellised tõmbuvad pruuniks enamasti siin viimastel aastatel, enne kui nad maha langevad, siis need lehed.
Kas võib olla riiklike metsade massiline maha raiumine tingitud just sellest, et teatakse, et pritsitakse ja metsa väärtus nii-öelda langeb, et praegu on veel võimalik see mets rahaks teha, sest hiljem ta on lihtsalt kahjustunud ja taga ei olegi midagi teha, ongi üks prügimets. Et mida te sellest vandenõust nii-öelda arvate, et kas sihuke teema võib õige olla, Kalle?
Kõigepealt, kui sa lubate, siis ma ütleksin ühe sõna Peetri jutu toetuseks, et ta tõi välja nüüd selle, et kuused on nõrgemad ja seetõttu nad hakkavad kuivama. Mändide puhul see ei avaldu. Ma kuulasin seda mõttekäiku ja ma püüdsin oma arvates leida ka põhjusliku seose, miks see nii on. Kõik ju lähtub tegelikult, ütleme, selle puu juurestikust. Me teame, et kuuse juured on suhteliselt mööda maapinda laiali ja männijuur läheb otse, läheb sügavusse. Ehk siis ütleme, et kui nüüd sealt ülevad mingisugused saasteained satuvad, siis on kuuse puhul on see läbi nii-öelda sadevete, on ta rutemini kahjustub siis kui mänd, kes saab nii-öelda rikkumata, et toitainet saab siis nagu sügavusest rohkem kätte. See on nagu minu selline mõttekäik selle asja juurde. Aga mis puudutab nüüd seda sinu lauset, siis ma arvan, et ma ei tea, äkki ta ei olegi ikkagi seotud selle lennuki triibutamisega, või tähendab, miks need raiutakse. Kõigepealt küsimus on selles, et ma arvan, et siin on mingisugused muud põhjused, miks seda palju tehakse. Kõigepealt on see, et sellest on võimalik hästi kiires korras raha teha ja Eesti on ju selles mõttes tooraine andja, teised riigid ju valmistavad sellest väärtuslikumat kaupa. See on nagu üks põhjuseks. Teiseks on see, et on ju tegelikult seesama puit, see elav loodus, roheline, see on see, mis ju CO2 fotosünteesi kaudu siis muudab. Et kas see võib olla ka see põhjus, et metsi vähendada selleks, et see suurendada CO2 fotosüntees lõpetada? Või on siin ka põhjus see, et tuleviku väljavaates, et lagedal on parem inimest taga ajada, et noh, ma ei oska öelda. See prügipuitu ma arvan, et ei ole olemas, et ikkagi on võimalik tast midagi teha, kas või siis ütleme puiduhaket või siis ütleme halupuud, et ma ei tea, tähendab, ütlen ausalt öelda, et Mario, ma ei oska sellele küsimusele vastata. Siin võivad olla mitmed põhjused ja ma paluks vabandust kuulaja käest, aga ma ei julge siit kindlat teooriat välja öelda.
Selge, aga annaks Mihklile sõna.
No, aitäh, et kõigepealt tulles veel selle enda avakäigu juurde, kui ma siin rääkisin ka sellest, et millised haigusi põhjustab, siis ma tegin veidikene endal ka kodutööd tähendavalt ja tegu on siis rahiidiga. See tuleneb sellest, kui on D-vitamiini puudus, siis mida vähem päikest, seda vaesem on see inimese organism. Nüüd puudutas sinu seda küsimust selle kohta, kui me räägime, et raiutakse maa selleks, et tulevikus võib-olla ei saa enam seda raidumise eest ei saa seda raha. Siis suuresti nagu Kalle seisukohad on vägagi sarnased sellele, mis ma nagu jäin mõtlema. Ja mis nagu peast käis läbi, et seda on tehtud juba aastaid metsade üle raiumist. Ja mis on üks osa põhjuseist, ma arvan, on see, et nagu see puit, mida meil siit maha võetakse, seda saadetakse ju mingis ulatuses ka hakkepuiduna Hollandisse ja mujalegi. Et see on nagu minu meelest nagu üks osa on puhtalt raha teenimise eesmärgil, et Eesti riik saab nagu selle pealt mingisuguse protsendi kätte. Aga teine on tõesti, mis siin välja toodi, et jõuame nagu sügavamale tasandile, et kõigepealt raiutakse metsasid maapiirkondades maha ja seejärel siis jõuame ju selleni välja, et mida vähem on metsasid ja üldse selliseid rohealasid, kus nagu inimesed saavad näiteks marjul käia või siis lihtsalt ütleme muidki praktilisi tegevusi teha, siis seda tõenäoliselt on jah, et lagedal väljal näiteks, noh, mina ütlen küll, et ma loodan, et seda ei juhtu, aga lagedal pinnal on märksa kergem nagu sõda mängida, kui selliselt aspektilt nagu võtta. Siis jah, see inimeste jahtimine, et kui pole roheloodust, pole nagu neid puid, mis kaitseks inimest näiteks sellises keerulises olukorras, me ei tea, mis võib olla, aga jah, siin on see tõsine risk kahtlemata olemas ja võiks veel öelda sedagi, et võib-olla nad seda taotlevadki, et raiudes metsasid ja rohealasid maha, siis sellega kupatatakse inimesed maapiirkonnast ära, sest et teil ei ole võimalik enam toitu kasvatada, paneme teid 15 minuti linnadesse ja siis hakkate seal kastiratastes või mingites renditavates tõuksides liikuma ja lõpuks jõuame sinnani välja, et mine kuhu tahad, eks ju, et linnad on, noh, me jõuame juba siin järjekordselt sügavama sellesse faasi, et üks osa sellest inimeste mürgitamist käib läbi keemiatriibude, chemtrail, teine osa, noh, siin on sellest juba mitu aastat räägitud, alates 2021. aasta vähemalt on need COVID-vaktsiinid grafeen jälle sees, samamoodi ka nagu siin on see chemtrail ja kolmas osa, kus võib seda grafeeni üldse kogu sellist mürgikompotti saada, on need 5G võrgud, kus me jõuame selleni välja, et kui need kõik kolm on aktiviseerunud, siis inimeste tervis plahvatuslikult halveneb ja me jõuame lõpuks sinnani välja, et inimestel nagu ei lubata rohelises viibida, kus ei ole sellist teise maailma, et jõuamegi lõpuks sinnani välja ja siis pole rohelist loodust, siis inimestel nagu ongi see, et kõik müüakse raha eest maha ja lõpuks jõuamegi nagu sellesse kohta, kus inimeste enda selline loovus on nii tugevalt kannatada saanud, et enam pole siin paljudel midagi teha, et sellest on nagu puht isiklikult on väga kahju. Aga ma loodan, et kõigele vaatamata me suudame siiski ühel hetkel jõuda sellesse faasi, kus selline kurjus saab oma hävitava lõpu ise, sest et madu hakkab ühel hetkel oma pead niikuinii ära sööma ja kuidas see kõik toimuma hakkab, eks me siis sellest turbulentsis ühel või teisel päeval hakkame nägema, et see on minu poolt kõik. Aitäh!
Selles suhtes, et kui märke tuleb aina rohkem välja ja aina rohkem tõestatakse inimestele seda ära, et toimub pritsimine, siis millised oleks meie võimalused inimestena see asi ära lõpetada ja öelda, et lõpetage see jama ära. Kalle?
Jah, ma tegelikult ootasin, et kas sa jõuad nüüd selle teema juurde või ei jõua. See, mis ma nüüd tegin Riigikogus, see on nii-öelda niisugune esialgne armetu katse. Ja ütleme selliste juupiltide peal, fotod ja ka ütleme sellised inimeste kaebused, need sisuliselt seda giganti ei kõiguta, kes seda on planeerinud ja kes seda ka teoks teeb. Selleks minu hinnangul, vähemalt võib-olla mu mõttekäik on natuke primitiivne, aga ikkagi, selleks on vaja moodustada eraldi töögrupp, kus on koordineeritud ülesanded. Kõigepealt, eks ju, aluseks on, kui nüüd muidugi ära keelata, on olemas ju 2 lennuradarit, mida on võimalik siis ka interneti kaudu jälgida. Võttes aluseks siis ütleme selle vaatleja asukoha, ta saab kaardi pealt vaadata, mis lennuk lendas üle näiteks, eks ju, kus on tema stardipunkt, kus on tema lõpupunkt, sest need on radari peal kõik näha. See nüüd eeldaks seda, et selle töögrupis peaks olema nüüd ütleme suutma nüüd sealt lennuvälja töötajatest kedagi sellesse töösse kaasata, et fikseerida ära siis tegelikult ma olen näinud ju ka need, ütleme, et videod selle kohta, mismoodi need siin eelkõnejad öeldi, et need kütuse nii-öelda see saba ei tule mitte tagant, vaid tuleb tiibade pealt, tiibade küljest tuleb, eks ju. Et võimalik oleks kontrollida siis, kas või kuidas on võimalik saada need, ütleme, need mingid filmilõigud sellest lennuki mark, selline lennuk, võt näed, siin on sellised kahtlased avavused, sest ütleme, ega meist keegi pole ju lennunduse teadlane, ei ole, ma usun siin grupis. See oleks nagu, ütleme, fikseerida ära lennuk, kus ta maandub ja üritada saada siis temast sellist videotõendusmaterjali. Teine asi on nüüd see, et kindlasti on ka selliseid meteoroloogia, kelle abil oleks võimalik saata kõrgustesse siis ka, ütleme, selliseid, kas ütleme, sonde, õhupallisonde, et saada siis otsesed andmed selle kohta, mida see sond siis, ütleme, tuvastab, milliseid keemilisi elemente selles, ütleme, selles triibus. See kõik on meeletu suur töö, väga raskesti teostatav, aga üksinda ei ole seda võimalik teha. Ütlen, siin on vaja sellist ja see võtaks tegelikult tohutu ressursi ja inimesed peaksid, need, kes tahavad tegeleda, see peaks olema fanaatiliselt ja suutma seda asja teha, selle asja kokku panema, mismoodi see toimiks selliselt ja siis nende tõendusmaterjaliga liikuda edasi. Et see oleks nagu üks, aga üksikisikuna mina näiteks ei ole võimeline seda tegema. Siin on vaja suurt meeskonda ikkagi. Ja nii kaua, kui me ütleme lihtsalt postitame neid pilte ja näitame näpuga, näed, mis toimub ja nii edasi, eks ju, kurdame selle üle, et meil on pärast seda triibutamist on köha. Aga nii kaua, kui me ütleme, ei organiseeru ega ei koordineeri oma tegevust, nii kaua see asi jätkub. Vot see on minu poole mõte.
Siis siit tuleb ka Eesti inimestele üleskutse, et kui on aktiivseid inimesi, kes samuti sooviks sihukese asjaga tegeleda ja selle vastu võidelda, siis koopereeruge ja moodustage, et ühtsuses peitub jõud. Et kindlasti me ka toetame gruppe, tekkinud töögruppe ja kasvõi eesti.com teeme kasvõi saateid, et võitleme selle vastu.
Ma lisaksin juurde praegu siia veel seda, sest näiteks praeguseks on mulle laekunud andmeid selle kohta, et ma nüüd ei mäleta, kas oli siis Muugal või Maardus või kus on olemas erilised isegi suured need tünnid, mis on, mille peale vähemalt ühe peale on kinnitanud perekimitar. Et sealt hakkab see asi peale, et kui ma saaksin sellisele kujul lähteandmed kätte, eks ma saaksin midagi edasi teha, ütleme oma Riigikogu liikme staatust ära kasutades, et ma saan sealt küüned taha panna, aga üksi ma lihtsalt ei jõua seda teha tähendab kõike. Sest andke andeks, aga see hullumajas on seal, mis täna seal on, eks ju, hullumaja puhvetis, mitte hullumajas, eks ju, on tegelikult niivõrd palju teemasid, kus sa pead suutma ennast jagada nende kümnete vahel ära teha. Aga see on, ütleme, selline töö, mis vajab sellist head juhti, ta peab olema teatud, ta võiks olla ka mingisugune erialaliste teadmistega, näiteks ütleme kliima osas, atmosfääri osas ja kui meil on olemas, see on üks, miks mõte on selles, et siis peaks olema, siis ei saa keegi öelda, et mingisugune Grünthal tuli ja rääkis siin, ütleme, lapse juttu, vaid taga on eksperdid, kes on tunnustatud. Kõige selle usutavus ka, sest on ju suur vahe, kas räägib lamemaalane või räägib, ütleme, ikkagi teadlane kõike seda juttu.
Just täpselt. No siin on nüüd omaette küsimus jälle, vaata, kui on tunnustatud inimene, ja siis ta kindlasti on kõva koha peal töötab ja siis ta jälle teistpidi seotud, et ta ei saa nagu siukses võitluses osaleda, sest vastasel juhul ta vallandatakse.
Ma julgen ikkagi natuke vastu vaielda. Mäletate seda maskiperioodi, millal kõik pidid kandma maske ja siis tsiviiliallianss, kui te mäletate, oli veel selline, kes selle COVID-i ajal oli, siis tema tellis Keskkonnauuringute Instituudiks ekspertiisi just meditsiiniliste maskide osas, muuseas, mida ma täna kasutasin Järvamaa haiglas ja lubati mulle, et rohkem sealt täna maski kandmist kohustuslik ei ole. Peast lubas, eks ju. Et vaatame esmaspäevast, mis saab. Et nemad julgesid sellega välja tulla. Et ma ei oleks nii pessimistlik, sest tegelikult tundub jah, et see kõik on väga raske sellisel viisil edasi arendada. Aga tegelikult me ei võitle mitte ainult enda tervise eest, aga me mõtleme ka nende ullikeste ees, kes on klapid on peas ja ei saa aru, mis tegelikult toimub. Tegelikult midagi pole teha, lahingusse lähevad ainult ässad.
Aamen, Kalle. Aga annaksid edasi Kertule. Kertu ei ole kaua sõna saanud, et oled mõtteid jõudnud koguda.
Ja, aitäh. Minu mõtted läksid natuke triivisid sügavamale, et ma olen täiega selle poolt, et tuleb tegutseda, aga samal ajal toimub ju metsik hävitustöö edasi, mida mina olen oma hoovis märganud, mul ei ole väga suur kruntlinnas. Mul loodus siin ülirikkalik, ma just siin eelmine suvi vaatasin, mul oli teeleht, ma ei ole maal ka neid nii suurt teelehte, see oli suurem kui mu käelaba, ma vaatasin, et kuhu vihmametsa ma olen sattunud ja siis ma jälgisin, mul on hoovis siil elab, mesilased südalinnas, rohutirtsud siristavad, täielik idüll, sest ma ei niida ja siuke hipihoov veits, aga ma tunnen, et see on sellest, et see energia on hoitud. et see on nagu selline, et noh, kui nad piserdavad, okei, aga mina hoovis ei näe neid tagajärgi, sest see on selline nagu vaimne tasand, see nähtamatu maailm, et siin on mul nagu selline ja ma olen ka visualiseerinud siia seda klaaskuplit, et mina siin elan oma harmoonias ja ma elan südalinnas ja ma elan sellise tundega, et see ongi nagu minu see oaas. Nii, aga samal ajal mäng käib edasi ja need kõik teised, kes elavad oma justkui oaasides, sest wifi on hea, 5G-ga tehakse asjad veel paremaks, varsti tulevad kiibid, need aitavad ennetada raskeid haigusi, kes elavad selles maailmas. Tegelikult meil on natuke vastutus nende ees, sest võib-olla nemad on see nõrgem osa ühiskonnast, kelle vaim ei peaks tegelikult vastu, et kui ma saaks nipsust kõik üles äratada, ma arvan, et enamus nendest tänastest magajatest, nad läheks hulluks. Nad lihtsalt murduks selle pinge all ära, et oh, wow, mis siin toimub. Ja hästi paljud elavad ka ju tegelikult lähisuhte vägivalla psühholoogilises momendis. Sind retsitakse ja sa ei julge hakata vastu, sest sa kardad, et äkki läheb asi siis hullemaks. Noh, meie näitel, kui me teeme suu lahti, siis ega meil ei halastata ju. Aga inimene, kes on elanud aastaid psühholoogiliselt sellises lõksus, et kui ma nüüd natuke kurdan, et noh, need maksud ja muud asjad, et siis ma saan ju rohkem selle võrra, et ega nad ei jäta siis karmimalt karistamata sellest, et sa julgesid midagi öelda. Hea näide, üks kohalik suur ettevõtte, kohalik elu, kõike toetame, aga üks töötaja julges öelda, et kuulge, et noh, aga miks te võiks näiteks palkasid tõsta selle asemel, et siin seda suurt remonti teha? See inimene sel kuul preemiat ei saanud, sest ta julges suu lahti teha. Kas te arvate, et keegi edaspidi seal teeb suu lahti või ei tee ja need palgad on seal ikka naeruväärselt väiksed? Ja siis ma tundsingi, et ühest küljest ma võin hoolitseda selle energeetilise poole eest, aga ja noh, ma lähen võib-olla liialt soorollidesse, aga naised sellisel hingelisel tasandil peaksidki tegema seda ja mehed samal ajal teevad oma neid töögruppe, tegutsevad selles maises plaanis, et see jura ära lõpetada ja seni on naised nagu tagala, kes hoolitsevad, et meie loodus samal ajal ei närbuks. Ja kui palju iganes meil on kellelgi seda metsa ja maad, siis hoidagi seda sellist hingelist kontakti ja aidata see raske aeg sel nagu tervendaval moel loodusel üle elada. Ja inimesed ei pea sellesse uskuma, mida mina räägin, aga ma räägin sellest, mida mina näen, mida mina kogen enda sellises loodud ruumis. Ja see, et metsa võetakse niimoodi maha, ma arvan, et see on ka seotud sellega, et maamaks, mets maha, müüakse see maalapp minema, sest muidu sul on selle võrra ju rohkem makse maksta. Kui alguses see maamaksuga hirmutamine tuli, siis ma arvasin, et see on bluff. Nad ei saa nii palju tõsta, sest üle 10% aastast tõsta ei ole ju lubatud. Ja kui volikogus oli see, et tõstame nii mitu protsenti, mina ütlesin, kuulge, et üle 10% tõsta ei tohi. Me ei tõstagi üle 10%, aga kui äkitselt öeldi, oi, teie maad on 12-13 korda väärtuslikumad senisest arvutatust, matemaatika. Ja siis kutsuti mingi kohalik asjapulk tankist mulle sinna ette, kes siis jahuks ja jahuks ja jahuks, et see on ikkagi lubatud, see ei ole üle 10%, noh, mis seal ikka. Aga vaikselt jõuab kohale, et nad ikkagi teevad selle maamaksu tõstmise ära ja just selle jaoks, et me ühendaksimegi ennast lahti oma maast. Sest kui sul on oma maa, siis sa seisad sellest hoopis teistmoodi. Kui sul on see 50 ruutu betooni, see on sinu maa ja hoovis on ka, vaata aknast välja, seal on ka mõned ruutmeetrid. See on sinu maa, naabritega ühisvara. See ei olegi tegelikult niimoodi, et sa võid nautida seda rohelust, midagi sinna istutada või teha sa ei või, sest see on ühine kõik. Ja korteri elu üleüldse mulle tundub, et aitab kõigil nendel asjadel aset leida, sest inimesed näevad koduna mingit sellist ruudukest, nagu sprotid karbis, aga lihtsalt seinad on vahel ja kaabki kontakt maaga ära ja siis nad ei saa meiesugust jutust aru, et mis loodus, mis asjad, ma saan ju metsa minna, kui ma tahan. Noh, kui sa 5 aastat järjest ei käi seal ja lähed siis näiteks RMK mingisse metsa, kus see mets jäi? Noh, kaob ja kaob niimoodi, et ma ei tea, et ettevõtjad niimoodi metsasid retsiks nagu need RMK platsid, mida ma olen näinud. See on jah, päris õõvastav ja see on väga halb eeskuju, sest kui RMK tohib nii teha, siis miks teised ei peaks, nemad on ju siuksed kõige esinduslikumad, peaks eeskuju näitama, aga noh, täpselt selline kole see eeskuju kahjuks on. Aga ma siinkohal annaksin sõna edasi.
Ja, annaks Andres Raidile.
Oi jah, see on keeruline ta on, aga mul lihtsalt paar ääremärkust räägiti siin sellest, et hiljem on mets võib-olla rämps mets ja temaga pole midagi peale hakata ja seetõttu on ta vaja praegu maha võtta. Ma kujutan ette, et siin on niisugune inimlik aspekt veel juures. Kui ta hiljem maha võetakse, siis saab raha keegi teine. Mitte mina. Ja see ei meeldi mulle mitte. See on nagu perekond Kallastel. Neile ei meeldi ei võim ega raha, eriti kui see kellegi teise käes on. No võt, siin ongi see paradoks. Ja teiseks, need tunnustamatud ja tunnustamata teadlased. Tunnustamata teadlane on see, kellel ei ole taga grantisid nii-öelda ja kõikvõimalike fondide rahasid. Tunnustatud teadlane on see, kellele on need antud reeglina. Ja kes seetõttu ajab täpselt seda juttu, mida vaja on, mida talt nõutakse. See on nagu, niisugusel madalamal tasemel käib see ju meil kogu aeg, kui üle päeva me võime lehtedest lugeda seda, et on jälle mingi uuring ja uuringu kohaselt seal keegi toetab ja keegi ei toeta ja miski asi on suurenenud ja miski asi on hoopiski kokku tõmmanud kuidagi moodi ja kõik sellised asjad on tehtud uuringuid. Siis uuringuid tegelikult ei ole, mitte ühtegi. Viimase 20 aasta jooksul ei ole mitte ühtegi uuringut tehtud, mis võiks kvalifitseeruda uuringuks, mis puudutab meie ühiskonda. Nüüd, aga ometi mingisugused asjad, mida nimetatakse uuringuks, mis tegelikult on kas kellegi nägemused, mis tegelikult kuuluvad üldse psühhiaatri valdkonda, kas on mingid kirjeldused, on kellegi mingisugused loendid või on keegi kuskilt kellegi käest midagi küsinud või veel midagi taolist. Uuringuid ei ole. Nüüd, kui neid ikkagi tellitakse ja neid tehakse, siis see viitab selgelt sellele, et see, kes tellib, ei tea, mis asi on uuring. Ja see, kes seda nii-öelda läbi viib, ei tea samuti, mis asi see on. Aga üks on rahul, sai seda, mida nagu tellis. Teine on rahul, et raha selle nii-öelda asja eest on saadud ja kõik on rõõmsad. Aga mida ei ole, on uuring ja uus teadmine, mis koos sellega oleks pidanud sündima. Vaat seda ei ole. Nii palju tunnustatud ja tunnustamata teadlastest. Muide, on olnud ka tunnustatud teadlasi, kes on otsekohe muutunud tunnustamata teadlased pärast seda, kui nad on ütelnud, et meie teemast lähtudes, aga võib-olla tõesti midagi sealt pudeneb. Pärast seda oled sa otsekohe tunnustamata teadlane. Või vastupidi, on olnud tunnustatud teadlane, aga ta on selline kahteval seisukohal olnud, antakse talle 100 000 mingite uuringute läbiviimiseks ja otsekohe on poos teine, järeldused uued, vastuvõetavad, kaunid ja kenad ja tegemist on igati tunnustatud teadlasega. No tase on ju see, kus keskkooli lõpetamata saab keegi ülikooli audoktorist, kas või Greta Thunbergist räägime, kui meil loevad ülikoolides loenguid mingisugused inimesed, kes ei ole ise mingisugust kraadi kunagi omandanud, aga on lõpetanud umbes 2 tosinat kõikvõimalikke kursusi, kõikvõimalikes Sorose instituutidest, kus on ainult üks asi väga tähtis, liigirikkus, mitmekesisus ja siis terve hulk need jätkusuutlikkus, ja veel mingisugused asjad, millega nimetatud asjadega pole tegelikult mitte mingisugust pistmist. Aga see kõlab ilusti, on mainstreamis ilusti kaasas ja see teadus on absoluutselt ununenud, et tegelikult lätete juurde jõudmiseks peadki vastuvoolu ujuma. Ei, see ei ole tänasel päeval moodne.
Just, ma täiesti nõustun, Andres, sinuga, et mul tuleb koroona ajast tuleb Robert Sarve juhtum meelde, kus ta MEM-kofees nii-öelda advokaadina räägib, et need nõuded ei vasta ju seadusele, et ei tohi. Ja mis Robert Sarvega siis tehti, visati advokatuurist välja. Ongi nagu tõestus sellele, et sa ei tohigi rääkida. Ja ei omagi see tähtsus, see ei oma üldse enam tähtsust, kes sa oled, on ju. Sest see võetakse sult ära, kui sa õiget juttu või nende meelest siis valet juttu räägid või niimoodi.
Kõik suhteline.
Just. Nagu paragrahv, oleneb, mis pidi vaatad. Aga Harry, oled jõudnud mõtteid koguda?
Jah, olen kogunud ja kuulanud ja mõelnud ja tahtsin öelda, et Peeter Liivi tähelepanek Eesti metsade ja Eesti puude osas on absoluutselt tõene õige. Ja mitte ainult kastanid ei ole linnas haiged, vaid kastanid on terves Eestis haiged. Ja nad on kohe väga haiged, nii et seda maalt, et nad suudavad ära õitseda natukene veel ja siis lähevad lehed pruuniks ja kukuvad ära ja ongi siis, kui teised puud on veel rohelised, on juba kastanid raagus. Et see on väga huvitav tendents ja kõige põnevam tähelepanek selle juures on see, et keset Tallinna linna on kaks kastanit kõrvuti. Üks kastan on pruun, teine kastan ei ole pruun. Ja kui ma hakkasin ka uurima seda ja küsisin, et miks need kastanid siis kõik pruuniks lähevad, siis öeldi, et seal pesitseb mingisugune kahjur, mis siis poole suve pealt välja ronib ja kõik kastanilehed ära sööb. No võtsin mikroskoobi ja püüdsin siis selle mikroskoobiga neid kahjureid kuidagi tabada. Ei tabanud. Järelikult ei osanud vaadata või neid kahtlaseid kahjureid seal tõesti ei olnud. Aga mis kuuskedesse puutub, siis need samad soojad talved on tegelikult kuuse jaoks ka kõige ohtlikumad üldse, sellepärast, et kuusk tahab külma. Kuusk on külma piirkonna puu ja kui on sellised soojad talved, siis kõik igasugused juurepässid ja loomulikult ka need kuuseüraskid elavad väga hästi, sest et kui me nüüd vaatame ka sellistes põlismetsades, kus on terved suured laigud surnud püsti jala peal surnud kuuski, siis noh, ma ei tea, kas see on just sellepärast, et midagi ülevalt alla pritsitakse, aga kindlasti on ka tegemist teatud klimaatiliste nagu muutustega. Ja loomulikult ei taha inimesed tunnistada seda, mis on nende jaoks uus ja võõras, sellepärast, et eitamine on ju meie kõigi juures üks küllaltki selline väga loogiline faas, enne kui ükskord tõeni jõutakse või need probleemid põhimõtteliselt iseendale teadvustuvad selliselt, et sa saad aru, et midagi on ikka tõesti päris tõsiselt nagu viga. Aga ükskõik, mida me siia õhku pritsime või ei pritsi või loodame selle arvel päästa nüüd maakera kliima soojenemise eest, siis võite täiesti kindlad olla, et see on kõik absurd. Mitte iialgi ei suuda väikene inimene sellise looduse vastu seista, nagu me siin oleme. Me võime muidugi hävitada ja see on ka kõik, aga luua me ei suuda ja päästame ka täpselt samuti ei oska. Need on nagu täiesti kindlad. Kui ikkagi loodus tahab, siis loodus seda niimoodi teeb. Ja väga palju, see on ikka väga ilusa näite, et kunagi ju Põhjanaba koha peal olid rohelised metsad ja oli hoopis teine kliima. Loomulikult maakera magnetpoolused ju parasjagu liiguvad ja muutuvad ja lähevad edasi teist ja kolmandat muud, aga koos sellega ka päikesekiirguse intensiivsus teatud piirkondades muutub. Nii et see on ka täiesti teada asjad. Et see on üks suur kompleks terve see maailm, milles me elame. Ja muidugi ääretult kahju, et me ise inimestena ei oska seda keskkonda ikkagi nii hinnata, nagu me tahaksime hinnata ja me hävitame. Aga mis puudutab metsade raiumist, siis tegelikult ei ole seal mitte midagi muud. Asi on väga banaalne. Selle taga on lihtsalt raha. Saaks raha sellepärast, et ja miks tuleb nii palju metsa raiuda? Sellepärast, et toorainena mets on odav. Teda ei ole väärtustatud, tal ei ole lisatud sinna suurelt jaolt lisaväärtust ja et saadagi mingit raha kätte ja otsaga kokku tulla, peab seda metsa olema palju, mida see turule paiskad. Ja see on üks selline olulisi põhjuseid, miks pärast me nagu põhimõtteliselt ei hooli või ei vaata või ei saa, sest et plaanid, raha, kasum, need on meie uue maailma trendid ja jumalad ja siin ei ole mitte midagi parata. Ise oleme endale selle valinud ja nüüd pole muud kui ainult selle muusika järgi tantsida. Ja üks asi veel, mis ma tahtsin öelda, et Kertetes ilusasti, et inimene ütles, et makske parem meile palka juurde, et miks te peate seda suurt remonti tegema. Selle vastu või selle kohta on üks ainukene väga lihtne põhjus, et see, kes remondi tellib, selle sõrmed jäävad ise rasvaseks pärast seda, kui see remont on valmis tehtud. Aga sa maksad inimestele palga välja, siis pole sul omal ju mitte midagi. Sa võid olla ju küll nagu hea inimene, aga oma see toidulaud jääb selle tükki maad lahjemaks, nii et siin ei maksa üldse seda küsimustki niimoodi käsitleda. Ja kui me nüüd vaatame ka seda, et ehitame suure uue raadiomaja, kas te arvate, et raadiosaadete kvaliteet selle muutub paremaks, nalja teed, ega maja ei tee raadiosaateid, või ehitame uue suure koolimaja, arvate, et hariduskvaliteet sellega oluliselt paraneb. Ei, see, kes selle tellib, selle sõrmed saavad, kui mõtleda niimoodi, et selle suu on rasvane ja sõrmed on rasvased. Nii lihtne selle asja käsitlus tegelikult ongi, nii et mõned asjad võivad olla väga lihtsad ja väga primitiivsed ja ei maksa otsida mingisuguseid erilisi suuri vandenõusid nii lihtsate ja labaste asjade taga. Nii et ma ei tea, mis teha ja ma olen Kallega väga nõus ja ütlesin ka seda, et me niikaua kui me ei suuda neid konkreetseid fakte tuvastada, et pihustatakse ja millised liinid pihustavad ja kes selle konkreetselt taga on ja kes käsib ja kes annab korraldust ja kes tarnib seda kemikaali ja nii edasi ja tuvastada välja, et see pihustamised ei tule mitte tõesti mootorikütusest või väljaheite gaaside seest, vaid on hoopis eraldi kohad, kus nad lennukitest välja tulevad. Kui selliseid asju saab tuvastada, faktiliselt fikseerida konkreetselt, siis on ka sellel jutul absoluutselt hoopis teistsugune kaal ja seda alati küsida, miks ja kelle huvides. Ja jääda nüüd uskuma või rahulduda lollide ja poolikute vastustega, mida tavaliselt tavatsetakse öelda, sest et enamus küsijaid, kes küsib, on ka tegelikult andeks lollid. Nad ei oska esitada, formuleerida küsimusi, nad ei oska sellest küsimusest välja tuua just nimelt seda teravikku, mida ta peab esitledama, mida ta peab presenteerima, millele ta peab rõhuma. Talle lihtsalt öeldakse midagi ääretult rumalat, banaalset vastu, ta sellega lepib ja ta ei lähe selle teemaga sügavuti edasi. Ja teine asi on, mis on veel, me ju alati püüame olla häbematult lollid, poliitiliselt korrektsed. Kui sinuga ei käituta korrektselt ja kui sinuga käitutakse täpselt nagu viimase jätise või korraga või paadialusega või pagan teab veel kellega, miks pärast sina siis pead üritama olla kogu selle halva mängu juures viisakas ja kultuurne ja ütled, et meie niimoodi ei räägi. Saate aru, see on ju absurd. Üks elutarkus, mida tuleb alati arvestada. Pättidega tuleb rääkida alati pättide keeles, millest pätid ise aru saavad. Kui sa tahad nendega teises keeles rääkida, sa ei saavuta mitte kunagi tulemust. Uskuge, ma tean, ma olen 90-ndad läbi elanud. Ma tean, kuidas pättidega rääkida tuleb. See meie tipp-poliitikud, andke andeks, ei ole täna mitte midagi muud kui väikesed tühipaljad pätid. See on minu sisuline või minu arvamus või minu veendumus. See ei ole enam arvamus, see on minu veendumus, mis tugineb elukogemusele, sotsiaalsele, praktilisele elukogemusele. Aitäh!
Ja ma ei tahtnud vaatajaid ja nii-öelda siis aktivisti ära hirmutada, et just nende spetsialistide koha pealt, et kindlasti kui leidub mõni spetsialist, kes on nõus selle asjaga tegelema, siis lihtsalt tuleb valmis olla, et võidakse tühistada. Me oleme siin kõik tühistatud, ega me aga näed, elus me oleme ja teeme saateid edasi, vaata. Et Peeter, oled sa mõtteid kogunud?
Ja siin tekkis paralleel nüüd selle TNSE osariigi seadusandja poolt, ma ei tea, seaduseelnõuga 18. märts, kus siis milles keelatakse ära atmosfääri mõjutamine mis tahes keemiaga, mis tahes eesmärkidel, et see on selline esimene, siis võiks öelda pilootprojekt maailmas, kus mingi omavalitsus, osariigi valitsus antud juhul siis tahab ära keelata keemiapilvi oma taevas. Aga ma mäletan, omal ajal oli olemas täiesti kosmosekaart, oli olemas nii-öelda tehiskaaslaste pealt iga päev. Hiljem ta kadus kuskil ära ja ma ei tea, kas teda nüüd on, aga seal oli näha, ma ei mäleta, kui suures ulatuses see võib-olla oli rohkem siuke Euraasia osa, seal oli näha, kui tihe ja kus oli tihedam ja kus oli vähem tihe. Et ta oli, minu meelest oli ta ka värvides, on olnud selliseid kaarte ja tollal me märkasime, et Eesti oli kuidagi eriti punane, mis meile tekitas meelehärmi. Aga ma mäletan, oli ka kaarti, kus olidki fotod lihtsalt nendest keemiaradades siis niimoodi sigri-migri segamini igal pool. Siis selle suure nagu piirkonna. Ja mis puudutab inimestesse, kes tollal ka tuli nagu välja, et need on ikka erilennukid, et need ei ole nagu reisilennukid või kaubalennukid, need on ikka erilennukid, neil on eriseadmed selleks ja kindlasti need inimesed, kes sellega kokku puutuvad, töötavad, loomulikult nad on andnud siis vastava vaikimisvande, et nad ei tohi seda avalikustada. Aga Kertu jutu peale mul tuli meelde Joe Dispenza raamat, mille pealkiri on Kõik on platseebo. Nii et kui me arvame, et keemiapilled on meile kahjulikud, siis nad on kahjulikud, ja kui me arvame, et nad ei ole kahjulikud, siis nagu paljud tavainimesed, kes on täiesti kindlad, et midagi hullu ei ole, et siis neil see platseebo toimib. Ja suurem osa ju, ütleme, koolimeditsiinist toimibki inimesed, kes usuvad sellesse koolimeditsiini, kindlasti see annab suurt efekti ka nende ravimitega, millel on ka paratamatult kõrvaltoimed. Nii et see on väga huvitav küsimus, kui Kertu rõhutas siin sellist nagu vaimset või sellist energeetilist kaitset, ükskõik mis eesmärgil siis.
Aga mida sina arvad, Peeter, sellest, kas sellest võib asja saada, kui tuleb jälle üks grupp inimesi, kes sooviks selle asjaga tegeleda, et see jama ära lõppeks Eestimaa taevas? Oleks jumet sellel?
No ma ei tea, kui maailmas tekib selliseid erandeid siin ja seal, see Louisiana erand seaduseelnõu, mis keelab ära igasuguse allumise, eks ole, WHO, siis Maailma Majandusfoorumi ÜRO korraldustele, mis rikuvad siis on vastuolus kohaliku seadusandlusega. Ja ma usun, et Ameerika on väga huvitav riik, et seal on ikkagi 50 osariiki, eks ole, ja neil on küllalt suured õigused ja sellisel raskel perioodil, kriitilisel perioodil sealt võib igasuguseid huvitavaid asju tulla, mis võivad anda julgustust üle maailma.
Selge, aga meil hakkab saateaeg täis tiksuma. Meie saate vaatajatele siis kordan veel üle, et aprillikuu Patreoni tellijate vahel on siis üks üllatuskink siin karbi sees 670 € väärtuses. Et tellige meil Patreoni ja osalete loosimises. Aga võtaks siis selle teema kenasti kokku siin. Eesti.com ootab sisuloojaid, kontakt@eesti.com. MTÜ Konservatiivne Eesti ootab kõnesid toetustelefonile 9999, kõnehinnaks 10 €, võitluseks e-valimiste vastu. Weebiraadio tegevus saab toetada rahalise panusega Konservatiivne Mõtiskleja OÜ kontole EE92 77 00 77 100 683 5650 selgitusega annetus. Aitäh, kallid sõbrad, et meid kuulasite. Järgmine kord taas teiega, siis juba uute teemadega. Saade kuulatav Kagu- ja Nõmme raadios ning YouTube'i kanalis Konservatiivne Mõtiskleja. Kindlasti külastage ka meie Patreoni fännilehte patreon.com/Weebiraadio. Kõike head ja nägemist!
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 Kuulasite Weebiraadiot. Külastage kindlasti ka meie uudisteportaali www.eesti.com.
strange substance found by a Southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, that's the question at the heart of a phenomenon called chemtrails, now getting widespread attention.
Well, they say the government is dumping chemicals on us to control or manipulate the weather.
And they say the unusual-looking jet trails in the sky are actually chemical-laden chemtrails.
People say the government is up there in airplanes spraying all kinds of chemicals to change or manipulate the weather, leaving what you see there, and they call that a chemtrail. So what I look up there and I think are contrails, you're telling me are chemtrails?
Yes, that a contrail would be dissipated by now.
And it's interesting, Dale and Christina, this is of interest not just in this country, but European countries and frankly all over the world. A lot of folks interested in it.
Well, Dave, you mentioned that climatologists and others who study the atmosphere believe that they'd be able to surely spot any kind of signs of an ominous plot.
Our journey started in San Diego, California, where thousands of scientists, engineers, policymakers, and journalists gathered for the American Association for the Advancement of Science Conference. One of the topics was the artificial manipulation of the Earth's climate, also called geoengineering. During the meeting, scientists spoke about the plausibility of implementing geoengineering campaigns throughout the world under the guise of preventing global warming. One widely accepted theory was to block the sun by spraying something into the atmosphere. When they were asked about existing aerosol programs, they stated clearly that no such programs have ever been implemented. But strangely, these proposals sounded exactly like what people around the world are claiming is already happening.
When I found out that the American Association for the Advancement of Science was going to be held down here and the main body of topics would be on geoengineering, I had to come. I had to be in on this. I had to hear what these top climate change scientists had to say.
And that's the other question about chemtrails and whether geoengineering is being deployed right now without our knowledge. I don't have any personal insight into that, other than to say that I've worked in government at pretty high levels in the White House and at state government. I'm personally skeptical of that. But obviously, you never know what you don't know.
Chemtrails. On the internet, they are cited as proof of the government creating clouds to combat global warming.
They claim the American government, with the secret approval of the national government, is covertly using jet aircraft to spray population centres with aluminium, with barium, and with strontium so as to reduce people's immunity and reduce the global population.
I'm always a little bit suspicious because the government doesn't seem that capable to do something on such a large scale.
That is not rain, that is not snow. Believe it or not, military aircraft flying through the region is dropping chaff. Small bits of aluminum, sometimes it's made of plastic or even italicized paper products, but it's used as an anti-radar issue, and obviously they're up there practicing. Now, they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is.
And what happens here, military jets, some come out of Key West Air Force Base, and they move off into the atmosphere, and they drop mylar strips. Some could be a little wider, some are small glass fibers that are coated in aluminum. And what the Air Force does is they take their military jets and they dump these out of the aircraft, they fall into the atmosphere, and some take as much to a day to fall down.
This is inevitably military or something going on. The government, the Air Force, you see this kind of a pattern like this, you can rest assured there's something going on. They're actually little bitty magnetic and little bitty strips of, whether it's aluminum.
It's a nuisance to you and I to determine what's real and what's not, but it looks like it is a life-saving operation there from the military.
The apparent motive behind this conspiracy theory is one world government.
Order, I cannot hear.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House that both my ministry and my colleague, the Minister of Health, who have received correspondence on this issue, that this conspiracy theory does not have an iota of truth, and that the trails observed from aircraft simply come from jet engines.
Question number 9. Order.
And I think what an appalling example it is of the new Foreign Affairs spokesperson for the Labour Party that she's spreading conspiracy theories about the United States government.
I think the House has heard sufficient.
It is called geoengineering, fighting global warming by putting a chemical dust in the atmosphere and reflecting harmful radiation back into space.
We take geoengineering to mean deliberate, large-scale intervention in the Earth system.
There are a variety of schemes that have been discussed for geoengineering. A classic example is injecting reflecting particles into Earth orbit.
Nevertheless, there might be some good reasons to think about alumina. It turns out, first of all, there's been a lot of work on the environmental consequences of alumina in the stratosphere. The big deal really is that alumina has 4 times the volumetric rate of forcing for small particles as does sulfur. And that means you have 4 times less surface area for the same rate of forcing. And this is a much bigger deal. You have roughly 16 times less the coagulation rate. And that's the thing that really drives removal. So you could get away, we think, with much smaller mass fluxes.
So that's why we see things like in the use aircraft patent from '89, they talk about aluminum. And that's why we're seeing in the surface water samples aluminum. And here's David Keith saying that aluminum has 4 times the reflective volume surface area. So they'd like us to think that we're talking about sulfur, but here they slipped up and let it out that aluminum is 4 times better to achieving their ends, and it sounds like it's going to be one they don't want us to know the effects of.
The little picture is from a nanofabrication study, which shows you can make very high quality, and do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality alumina particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that, and there's a big literature that's already looked at that. And you could do that by either building new versions of these aircraft or even re-engineering existing aircraft. So there's some ideas of that. So you go to an engineering firm and you want this done. They don't say this is hard or unusual. They say, okay, yes, we could do it. Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look. And that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, and that the side effects are harder to manage, and that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. Of course, the opposite reaction is possible. It's an empirical question, how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, then that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids.
Numerous air quality studies, including from CARB, California Air Quality Resource Board, have named submicron-sized particulates as being particularly harmful for human respiration. Through all the discussions today, I have not heard any mention of this fallout, and has this been studied, and also the effects of a highly reactive metal like aluminum on toxifying soils and waters?
The question is, what would be the effects of these materials on human health if they came down into the stratosphere, in particular small particles in aluminum?
So the collaborators of mine working on the aerosol scheme are actually folks from Carnegie Mellon who focused on human health impacts. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did, was do the order of magnitude calculation in a level pencil and paper, but with an expert on human health impacts about whether there could be an issue. And for aluminum or other particles, there are a lot of toxicological things that need to get looked at seriously. But if you're just thinking about the sheer number of particles and the human health impact of small particles, the answer is, while we haven't published it, that was the first thing we looked at with some of the leading experts who do epidemiological research on human health impacts, and it's not even close to being an issue.
Clarify, so 10 megatons of aluminum dumped into the atmosphere would have no human health impact.
So let me be more careful here. We're to separate out the toxicological. So the alumina, we've only begun to research and published nothing. Alumina, we've only begun to research and published nothing.
Dane looked at him and he said, so you're telling me that spraying 10 to 20 megatons of aluminum, as you said, would have no human health effects? He took a deep breath and he swallowed and he said, let me be more careful here.
We haven't done anything serious on alumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow. We haven't looked at it.
And that, for me, that was the whole main point of what is going to be coming out to the public. It's the damaging effects of aluminum that are being found around the world in massive amounts. Here's David Keith confronted on this very issue, and he looked, at that point like they just let the cat out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
we haven't done anything serious on Illumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow we haven't looked at.
They're proceeding because they have an agenda that's separate from trying to thwart this crisis of global warming. You know, there's obviously several other objectives, whether it's depopulation, control, weapons aspects, communications aspects, all kinds of things, you know, wild cards that we know nothing about. We don't really know, and I'm not going to attempt to speculate on exactly what the agendas are, but we can see clearly the agendas are not benefiting mankind. You know, it's benefiting the agenda of the elite.
And so I think the question is, how do you draw the line between some activity that is allowed and doesn't need global governance and activities that do require global governance?
Dr. John Holdren has agreed to serve as Assistant to the President for Science and Technology and Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. I look forward to his wise counsel in the years ahead.
My personal opinion is that we have to keep geoengineering on the table. We have to look at it very carefully because we might get desperate enough to want to use it.
So what would we do if in year 2040 or 2060 there's a severe climate crisis, say widespread famines or Greenland sliding suddenly into the ocean? That the only plausible way in which we could start the Earth cooling this century is to directly intervene in the climate system, say by putting particles in the stratosphere.
We do stuff in the stratosphere all the time, of course, and so it's not as though the stratosphere is absolutely pristine. But you don't want to have people going off and doing things that involve large radiative forcings or go on for extended periods, or for that matter provide lots of reactive surfaces that could result in significant ozone destruction.
You know, maybe I'm putting a particle into the atmosphere because I'm trying to make money, or maybe I'm putting a particle into the atmosphere because I'm engaging in scientific research and trying to understand cloud physics, or maybe I'm putting this particle into the atmosphere because I'm trying to make it rain locally to seed a cloud and get more snow on our ski slopes. And this obviously raises all kinds of questions. It's hugely risky. It will likely negatively impact some people, but we might find ourselves in a situation where those risks seem worth taking.
One of the things that really shocked me was in one of the breakouts they had the benefits of these programs and then the risks. Now the benefits, the one thing that was stated was the just cooling the planet. Some of the risks were ozone depletion, droughts in Africa and Asia.
I got to tell you, I came away from this experience after listening to these scientists for 4 days of symposiums, really concerned because it's clear now that they are justifying, rationalizing, and looking to legitimize some really, really horrible impacts, further impacts on our environment. And they're basically formulating the sales strategy and the implementation and oversight strategy and the funding strategy.
After San Diego, I was shocked by the programs that had been proposed. I decided to write about it. That night when I finished, I sent the article to an online publication with my email address attached. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox was flooded with responses from around the world. Why? Because I had just broken the story on aluminum in geoengineering models, which I had no clue at the time that very few people knew about. Now this metal, aluminum, is being found in massive quantities way above normal levels all over in rain, in soil, and in snow. After that, the calls started pouring in from people who were desperate for someone to investigate. That was the fuel that started the film. Before we started filming, we had the opportunity to sit down with one of our favorite authors and documentarians, G. Edward Griffin, to find out what he knew about the subject. I'd like to talk for a minute about an issue that's getting more and more attention. That's the issue which scientifically is called stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, also called the chemtrail issue.
I'm very aware of the chemtrail versus contrail controversy. As far as I'm concerned, it's an open and shut case. I have been watching the development of jet travel from its very beginning. I used to live near the Los Angeles airport. Remember when The first jets came in and landed. Man, they made a big noise. We never heard a noise like that before. And we used to go down and sit at the end of the runway and watch these jets come in and take off because it was a novel experience. I've been watching jets all my life, and I know about jet contrails. I've watched them. They're vaporized moisture, ice crystals, and they get out there in the atmosphere, and then they effervesce and evaporate and then disappear, and you can see them. Plane moves along, and the little white trail follows right behind it, and usually about 10 or 20 lengths of the plane or thereabouts, and then it's gone. And you can still see them that way, by the way, once in a while. So there goes a contrail. These other things we're talking about are not at all the same phenomena at all. These planes go by, and they billow out this white smoke, and it covers the sky from horizon to horizon. It doesn't dissipate at all. And they crisscross each other. And you see this thing cover the sky and turn it milky, and then people start having trouble breathing, and then you hear stories about the aluminum and barium deposits that they're picking up and the residue. And you put it all together, and I don't see how anybody who's got their eyes open and their mind open can come to any other conclusion but that somebody is spending a lot of money and effort to spray the planet. The question is, why? I have my own theories, but I hope that there will be some good investigative reporters go out there and get us the answer. I know that whenever it's finally discovered, and it will be, the people who are doing it will undoubtedly say, oh, well, we did it for you folks. It's for the greater good of the greater number. It's for the society. It's probably to prevent global warming. Or maybe it's to inoculate people against some kind of a dreaded biological attack. We can't go around shooting everybody in the arm, but we can spray them and save their lives. You see how good we are? We're doing it for the benefit of society. I know they're going to, whatever it is, they're going to say it was for your good, but mine.
Think if we had the ability to steer hurricanes, and the hurricane was going to slam into New Orleans. And let's say you could steer it so it would hit Mississippi instead, where for 100, that means I would be willing to more or less kill 18 Mississippians to save 1,800 New Orleanians. And if you do that knowingly, are you murdering those 100 people? And there's all kinds of equity issues there. Now, also, we might be wrong about our steering, and if we didn't do the research right, maybe our steering would intensify Katrina and even kill more people in New Orleans. And so this question of how do you develop the confidence to know that your intervention will reduce overall damage, and then how do you deal with the understanding that you might be damaging some people who wouldn't have been damaged before while saving people overall?
The spraying appears to be mostly in NATO countries. I've seen it here in the United States, I've seen it in England, I've seen it in Scotland, I've seen it in Canada, and I've had reports from people who live in France. There's a grouping, there's a political grouping here of some sort. It's international in scope. It's not just an American phenomenon, it's international. And anybody that wants to investigate that, I think, has to take that fact into consideration. They're going to find a political grouping and a political motive here. But in my humble opinion, it's not in your good or mine at all. I don't know what it is, but we'll soon find out.
I'm sure that if you follow the old advice, which is follow the money, you'll come to the answer sooner or later.
Soon we realized that we all shared the same need to get this information out there, to share with the public, to let people know what is being done. Ed felt so passionately about the issue, he offered to help us.
Well, the main thing now, since it looks like the budget is going to be met, is to get it done well. We don't come off the tree knowing any answers at all.
Yeah, we're not scientists. We're just asking questions, exactly.
And we've got to be very skeptical about the answers. That's it's totally accurate, totally honest. Why can't people see this? They're not hearing it. They don't know. The facts are not being presented. We're very lucky, you know that? Look at this opportunity that's been dumped on us.
I know.
Opportunity.
It's, well, this is going to...
It really is.
This is going to be a battle, I know that.
A challenge and a battle, but
I mean,
why are we here if it's not for that?
We're going to go to a short break with DJ Foxy.
I go to get hold of Morrow, so it's going to be you for the moment. I'll call him again. So.
Sounds good.
I saw the sky crisscross with chemtrails, and I can't remember if it was in LA or I was on the road, but I had looked up one day, and I thought, look at that. That's not the flight path, man. That was a grid, a regular grid. Yeah. Over the city, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
Milky white clouds.
And, you know, it all seems very obvious, and now the evidence of what we have on the ground with the aluminum, the barium, strontium, and with what we see in the patents and what the geoengineers say are going to happen, I mean, for the everyday Joe, this is a slam dunk.
This is a very delicate moment for the powers that be, because they're taking a covered-up operation like the tropospheric aerosol program, or chemtrails, Project Icarus, whatever, it's had many names over the years. And they're making it over into a geoengineering scientific shield to deflect sunlight because global warming's out of hand. So at this very moment, the belly of the beast is right above us with no armor. Whether people believe in chemtrails or not, the geoengineering should be scary enough. And when people learn about geoengineering, chemtrails will then become apparent, because they're the same.
So you're talking about global conspiracy here then?
Geoengineers propose doing this on a global level.
Off to Redding, California. Guess this is the second step after the AAAS meeting. We'll see what we find.
Right here in Northern California at Dana Wigington's house, he owns over 2,000 acres overlooking Lake Shasta. He told me about some of the challenges that they're having up here. Let's go and talk to Dane. We'll see, what's going on his property. We'll see what he's going through and also what action he's taking based on the test results that he has.
As you know, I have a background in the energy fields. I worked in the first solar plants in the continental U.S. in the early 80s. My home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine, so this is my background. My goal has been to alert the public there is a mountain of toxic material falling on us, period. Before about 5 years ago, our skies were typically blue, and now you see it's covered with lines and haze, and virtually nothing you see on the horizon, nothing you see in the sky above us is a natural cloud. I mean, it is virtually all the remnants of these aircraft lines that you see fanning out, spreading into clouds, artificial clouds, but the sky is a very dirty look to it. There's not the white cloud blue sky that we had only a few years ago, but it looks like there's some sort of massive industrial activity or forest fires burning over there, and we see that typically every night. You see even down to ground level, the clarity drops off significantly, and we don't see that except for the days when we have these long lingering trails that spread and cover the whole sky, and on certain days you can see these trails actually dropping vertically like a veil. We assume the particulates are descending, and we have the test to prove that we are being inundated with levels of aluminum and particulates that are literally tens of thousands of times what would already be considered high. So we're not talking about exposure to a slight percentage higher of these toxic materials. We're talking about quantities, for example, off the side of Mount Shasta. If you can pan back, that's a landmark in Northern California, considered to be a pristine water source. Aluminum or snow sample off the side of Mount Shasta tested 61,000 parts per billion.
This is just ordinary snow water, and people are drinking this stuff when they're hiking on the mountain. And remember, government action is required at 1,000. This is 61 times over the government limit, and our hikers are drinking this poisonous water on Mount Shasta Mountain itself. Barium, 83. Strontium, 383.
So this summer, the people climbing are drinking poison.
Basically. I certainly wouldn't want to drink 61,000 micrograms per liter of aluminum.
And again, we've already seen in 5 years soil pHs in this area that have escalated
10 to 12 times, and we can prove that conclusively. Well, this is not speculation. We can prove conclusively that these metals have been in the rain. We have duplicate samples.
Bachelor of Science in Forestry, International School of Forestry at Missoula. Master's in Zoology, specialized in aquatics. And 35 years with the U.S. Forest Service as a wildlife biologist. And before that, several years with the USDA Soil Conservation Service as a soil conservationist. Also have run the botany programs, range and grazing programs. And I continue that today. Right now I do a lot of master gardener consultation work.
When I started this garden back in about 2005 or so, the pH here was 5.5, 5.6.
This is the old soil survey of the county. You can look at the page right here. This is my soil right here. It's a Dietz 125, 126 here at my house. And here, the soil reaction pH should be between 4.5 and 6.0. And over there in the pure mud, it's even a little darker. It's 6.8 right there.
And what can this do to plant life and ecosystems?
Well, you haul one of these things out and you start looking at the little things that are crawling around the soil. A lot of times they aren't there anymore. The little soil arthropods that you can barely see on a microscope, you can actually see movement with this. Little tiny macroscopic, look like little moving pieces of dust. Those start to go away. They're not gone entirely, but they start to go away.
This is black oak acorns. You know, this is pieces of cedar wood. You know, come on, folks. This should be very acid, and I'm getting 10 times higher than expected. And there's something really wrong here.
Well, you can see all those reports, lots of them.
Have over 20 reports here.
Well, at least 20. I'd say it'd be closer to 30.
All revealing dangerous amounts of aluminum and barium.
You know, the science is there that something funny is happening.
And the naysayers say, well, so what? Isn't neutral good? Well, no, neutral's not good. Neutral is not good. If your soil is supposed to be 5.6, it should stay 5.6 if you want the forest to be healthy. And if you want to grow a good garden, you have to keep your pH around 6.0, 6.5.
I think that we just need to wake up and just look at what's happening, because we can't just ignore it, because it's going to get worse and worse if we just keep ignoring it and pushing it away like, oh, that's nothing. There was mason jars, and they were brand new, sterilized, and that's what we catch the rain in. And then there was a HEPA filter that we tested the air with.
Okay, so you caught rain and then you basically filtered air. What did you find?
Aluminum and barium.
Here's another test that's revealing 375,000 parts per million aluminum, barium at 3,090, and strontium at 345.
Yeah, that's from a lined pond.
With EPDM fish-safe pond liner. There is no chemicals, manufacturing materials at all in that pond liner that's available to the aquatic life. It's designed for that purpose. The well that feeds this pond has been tested and retested. ND, no detectable aluminum, 0. The only other place this pond can receive water is rainfall. We are located on a filtered, forested hilltop, miles and miles and miles away from any industry, highway, and so forth. After several heavy spray days, there was a film that we received formed on the surface of the water, and we tested that crust, and it was aluminum and barium. That after a year and a half's accumulation had 375,000 parts per billion of aluminum in it. It's literally toxic. We can say conclusively that what we see in the sky matches expressly what's outlined in numerous patents, and the materials on the ground match those patents. This material was not there 5 years ago. It is a recent phenomena in the quantities it's in. It has escalated in some cases 50,000% in 5 years in the case of aluminum. From our original baseline reading of 7 parts per billion, which was already high, it has escalated up to 50,000% in 5 years. And we've seen profound changes in that time.
Dr. Leonard Time, PhD in chemistry, I cross-checked with him
And he says the oxides of aluminum, barium, and strontium will drive your pH into the coastal, from an acid soil like this up into the neutral. There's no question about it.
And that's exactly...
That's exactly what you see happening.
Wow.
I have a doctorate in inorganic chemistry from Oregon State University, in which I was working with different metals and oxidation states, and then did a postdoctorate work at Brandeis, where I was working stabilizing off oxidation states of different metals. The goal is to sort of figure out how everything fits in the dynamic equilibrium of life. I was working with Francis up in Mount Shasta, and he showed me some rainwater analyses that had to do with levels of aluminum, strontium, and barium in the atmosphere. So I feel the major toxin in these chemtrails is the aluminum. And from the levels we were looking in at Mount Shasta, this is totally, totally unacceptable. When you get to metals and biological systems, you're no longer talking about the bulk aluminum that people think about when they're drinking from soda pop cans and that. So once it gets to the aluminum oxide stage, it just forms a plaque within your arteries and shuts down life. When you take elements that normally aren't out in the environment and you start putting them in the environment, it raises some serious red flags. Aluminum is a very specific, nasty, and biological systems. It takes that site and it never lets go, and it shuts down the site, and that's it. And so as you accumulate aluminum over time, it causes major neurological damage because it ends up as aluminum oxide that's essentially stuck in place and can't be flushed out by normal systems.
At the core of everyone's condition, there's always some level of toxins. And aluminum is known to have cancer-causing effects. The half-life is decades. I think that we should be working on taking more of these toxins out of our environment instead of adding more toxins in. It's very concerning that if we add more toxins to our environment, that will be increasing the rates and risks of cancers. Even one patient is not worth it. So sad that they would consider putting aluminum in our environment to affect something when they could be causing so much more damage.
Wherever the material is coming from, it is there. The amount of metal falling on us cannot be disputed. Absolutely, this is not speculation. The amount of metal in the last 4 years, as I said, have increased to a degree of thousands of times, and California Air Quality Resources Board has studied the aerosols from China. These metals are not amongst them. Mike, the reason I've chosen to focus so primarily on this issue is I feel all other issues are secondary. What could be a greater priority than not being able to walk out your door and take in a breath of air without sucking up heavy metals? If our land base is being poisoned, if our waters are being toxified, what will we have left to work with? Whatever we choose to focus our time and energy on, whatever our political beliefs, that this is a common ground for all of us. We must have air that we can breathe that's not full of toxic chemicals and metals. We must have water that's not completely laden with whatever is being emitted from these aircraft. And if people stopped to consider that the atmosphere is as thin as a layer of paint on a basketball, it is an extremely thin layer that allows life to exist on this planet. To simply treat it as a physics lab and experiment with it until it is broken beyond repair is folly of unbelievable proportion. And if people understood that this sort of experimentation not only is going on, but has been going on for a very, very long time. Going back 50 years, there's been countless climate manipulation, weather modification programs that the vast majority of the public is completely unaware of. And if they think that this is not true, that certainly that somehow they would have known if it was occurring, I would ask them to look at things like Agent Orange and the things that governments do because they can, because there's no one to stop them, because they have these huge military machines that want to control everything. And in fact, the government's own document, perhaps you may have seen, it's available to any online, is called Owning the Weather, an expressed goal of our government, and not just our government.
He told the Associated Press that the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and to control the rest.
There is weather control techniques. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilized it as far back as the Vietnam War.
Well, Murph, we're going to do what we can. Let's see what we can do. You got the scientists behind you. The scientists are with you, so at least this scientist is with you. I may not have $1 million budget, but I've got enough to show that something's dreadfully wrong.
You got it. All right. So Arizona will be this Monday, the 21st. Senator Johnson up in Show Low. So we're going to be in the car a long time. Well, it is such a pleasure.
This is such a place back here, I'm telling you, Michael. But you know what? We love it. It's so private and it's so quiet and peaceful. And please come in.
My name is Karen Johnson. I served in the Arizona State Legislature for 12 years. I was in the House for 8 of those years and in the Senate for 4 of those years. When you see a plane fly overhead, there's a trail that leaves the end of that plane, and it goes from one horizon all the way to the other as the plane flies across, and it begins to filter out and cover more and more of the sky in kind of ripples. It widens out and fills the whole sky. I mean, how could anybody think that that was the case? And then to live and to be underneath that and know that whatever is in that is falling down upon you and upon your animals and upon the earth. And I mean, it's frightening to me. And if people don't start really waking up and facing the fact that we've got people that are doing terrible things to us, and we had better wake up and fight back now. I mean, I'm the mom of 11 kids. I've got 35 grandkids. I mean, I've got a stake in this. I care about what is going to be left for my children. I care about it, and I'm extremely worried about what is going to be left to them.
Aluminum is toxic, and we know that it's accumulative. And we know that we're getting more. So we're absorbing it in the air, we're drinking it in our water. So we are accumulating more. So the thought of more aluminum being dispersed in our environment in the way that you mentioned is very frightening to us and very disturbing to us. Those of us who have done any research on this are really quite concerned that we are ill-informed about this issue, and mostly that it's being done. Aluminum is toxic. We know that it is. We can debate as to the amount of toxicity that is going to be disturbing the body, but as far as really accepting the fact that it's accumulative, it's synergistic, then we have to conclude that it's not a good idea to put it in our atmosphere, especially when we know we're getting increased amounts, and especially since we know that the scientific communities around the world are pointing a finger at the heavy metal toxicities, at the toxicities that we're absorbing in the day-to-day food that we eat and the air that we breathe.
The concern is off the charts about why is this happening? Why is this being allowed to be sprayed continually all over the United States, all over the world? Who is paying for this? I mean, the incidence of Alzheimer's has just skyrocketed, which evidently has to do with an accumulation of aluminum in the brain cells. I mean, I think almost every family has been touched by a member as they get older having Alzheimer's. And it's a horrible disease. And to say that, well, this just came because people drank soda pop out of aluminum cans, you know, when my father passed away with Alzheimer's and he didn't ever drink soda pop, you know, that explanation doesn't ring true with me. And so I'm wondering, how much did this chemtrail spraying back in the Illinois area affect him?
Aluminum and fine metal is an accelerant.
A friend who's a firefighter up in Pine, Arizona for 20 or 30 years says that the wildfires now that they're fighting are way beyond anything they've seen before in intensity. And when you look at the air samples and you see the fine particles of aluminum, which is very flammable, and magnesium settling on the trees, this is causing unprecedented savage wildfire.
But if you look at this, you can see these are parts per million. They sent this to me, and I just found this to be extremely interesting because we should have like 2 parts per million of aluminum in our air. And this is saying that there's 39,000 parts of aluminum. That's astronomical. Barium is high. I mean, these are way off the charts of what people should be breathing or what's coming down on them. And, you know, if people wonder why their health is deteriorating, why they're having to go to emergency rooms, why they can't breathe, you know, why they're getting Alzheimer's, this has been planned. We have elites, I don't know what you want to call them, one worlders, Illuminati, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. But with these people that don't care about the average person. They only care about themselves, their greed, their power, and if they eliminate, you know, 2/3, 3/4 of us from the planet, so much for the better for them, because then they don't have so many people to have to herd around and worry about. So this is a lot what this is about, and this is very, very alarming and scary. I mean, where is this stuff coming from, and why? Why is this kind of stuff being put out there? You know, I've heard different explanations about, oh, we need to cool the planet, all this and that. But if people are up there trying to cool the planet, why do they need all this kind of stuff in it? The explanations just never have really rang very true.
And as I'm setting up the equipment, she looked at me and she said, all these trees here are dying. And I said, what? She says, all these trees in here are dying. So I thought, well, I'm going to test for aluminum, because that's one of the key things in the programs that we're talking about, and titanium. And I took some of this bark sample and tested it, and it came back positive with aluminum and titanium. Then I started traveling around California, noticing the same thing. In Lake Tahoe, there was a lot of the same type of bark, all through Sacramento area and Davis. Just about everywhere I went, I was noticing this silver white bark. What I think is happening is these chemicals are getting down and destroying the roots. And then as they come up, they're going out into the bark.
Those 2 right there are the ones that are just, it just hurts so bad to see these 2, because look how old and big they are. We probably lost 40 trees right here on our 10 acres. Every week, every other weekend, we'd see another tree that was beginning to die. And I mean, it's just so sad, we just cry. And to think that that might have something to do with it, along with their other explanations, would really, really frost me. Every time you lose a tree, you know, it's not good, it's just sad. And there's another one over here in this little group of trees here. Don't you feel better when you stand up and fight than if you crawl down in a little hole and go to sleep? You know, I mean, my gosh, people, your families are out there, children are out there, your grandchildren. I mean, you've got to do something to help.
My greatest hope is to get people to question. And hey, if they don't wake up while we're there, I'm hoping to plant some seeds. We're going to the most beautiful place on the planet, Hawaii, to see what's going on, collect some data.
Thank you for having fun with us. Hope you enjoyed the trip. Have a great vacation and welcome home if you're lucky enough to live here. Thank you. The whole valley's off the grid, so it's either solar, wind, or generators.
Look at this, man.
Yeah, the mind can't even conceive of a dream of this.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Even coming here, and one would never think, in paradise that it's getting destroyed.
And they're doing it island style. They do it off the island, right? They do it off the island, so they don't, you don't see the chemtrail airplane.
The theory is that they're spraying offshore, and
it's coming in on the...
And it's coming in.
Now these are coming from the west. They're also spraying on both sides today. A lot of this stuff is actually chemtrails coming this direction.
There's material that's blocking. We should be able to see to the horizon, where the Earth curves, because we're high enough and we have the ocean, right? So we should be able to see. We should be able to see the Big Island. It's only 30 miles away.
And you can see it's not a blue sky behind it. That's the key. It's all has that kind of weird looking blue, like silver blue, I call it. And this is a nice day. There's no more blue sky. The night we're gonna look at the stars at night, and it's like you'll see it. You can count them. There's so few stars at night now. There should be hundreds of thousands of stars, and I can count the stars. There's like one here and one planet here. It's like you might see some nights you'll see 100, some nights you'll see 10. This is what concerns me. This kind of stuff right here. It's just soft.
Okay.
This just comes right off, this bark. That's not natural. For I've seen hundreds of thousands of coconuts, and I've never seen it falling apart like that. Look at this, you guys. I've never seen anything like this. I used to trim trees all the time on the Big Island. I've never seen anything like that. That's why I'm concerned.
Not an easy task that you have here on the island. I could see the skepticism because it is so far beyond anybody's reality.
It's amazing. It's just amazing to try to look through somebody else's eyes. Like my eyes, I can see this, so it's like night and day. And other people, it's just the illusion is just so deep.
What do you think would happen if everybody awakened to what was going on and what the plans were of geoengineers?
I think they'd have a revolution in Hawaii. If people really understood what was going on.
What's your concern for? I know that you love the land here. What's your concern about the chemtrails?
Well, that we won't be able to live here and grow our own food, and that our health is going to be compromised.
Do you think it already has been?
Yes. And the thing is that they're doing it every day here, every day. So it's hammering, micro doses every day. And then, of course, it's getting in the environment, and of course, it's weakening the plants. And it takes a couple years for this to actually weaken the plant. So we're asking for GMO taro. We're asking for GMO papaya because we can't grow our natural seeds. We can't be sustainable. We can't truly, be here as God created us to be.
So my friend convinced me to do a hair analysis on my daughter. So we went ahead and cut close to her scalp and got some really recently grown hair and sent it in. I was just sure that my daughter's hair was going to be so clean with the lifestyle that we live. And lo and behold, it came back and her levels were really high in aluminum. This is the chart here. This is the reference range, and this is where my daughter is. 23.1. Aluminum. The skies are covered with a white mist, and I look up at night anymore and I don't see the deep, dense stars that I used to, and I can't help but think this obviously has something to do with my daughter's health. I don't know where else these heavy metals are coming from.
Yeah, I mean, look how old she is. Yeah. She's been isolated here.
Here, and she's...
here. Anybody looking at the situation would be like, this is paradise. This child should be like superhuman.
Organic farm.
And here you are getting all this heavy metal stuff.
She has highest level aluminum on the chart.
Never had a vaccine either. Folks, these people are playing God. They are playing God. They're manipulating the weather and they're spraying stuff into the sky. They are trying to geoengineer everything, including your plants and trees and your ocean. Well, tonight, we're just hoping that instead of not looking at it, you start looking into it, because I really believe from the bottom of my heart that we are in a real crisis. I really do. They are proposing dumping 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the upper atmosphere. What does aluminum do? It changes the pH of soils, which is toxic to plant life. Also, it's very toxic to human health. Are they doing it? Well, let me tell you about my experience and what we found. We have much evidence that not only suggests, but I believe prove that they are happening. Jeff, what's going on?
And as I promised, we're joined right now by a very special guest, Michael J. Murphy, currently on location in Hawaii. He's working on a documentary film called What in the World Are They Spraying? Michael, welcome to the program. Great to speak with you today.
I had a friend who recently, he's always looking at things from a different perspective. He's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, you know. And he says that whenever the president comes to LA, there's no spraying that week.
Could you have a better place for an interview? I mean, look.
Well, this is being done over our farms and over our things. So basically, they want to eliminate our ability to eat organic food, have clean water. So in some ways, it sounds to me like, and you know, again, it's just a projection, but it sounds to me like this is control. How do we control the masses? Yeah. How can aluminum be good for you in any?
And what was the second chemical you mentioned?
It's barium.
Barium aluminum. Obviously, those are toxic to everything.
To human health.
To human health, to farms, to animals, to everything.
61,000 parts per billion.
And there should be a government alert at 1,000?
At 1,000, people are drinking this. People that climb the mountain, they're drinking that snow. It's poison.
Oh my God, that's so disgusting.
So that's 60,000 times above regulation.
Exactly.
60,000 times above regulation. And I've talked to friends and they're like, well, that's just ice. That's just condensation. And I'm like, you can talk to a second grader. Ice doesn't float in the sky and spread out that way, you know?
You're not an expert, but you're a concerned citizen who said, wait a second.
Who's actually doing the research.
Yeah, you're doing the research, and that's what we need to do as Americans and say, you know what, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what the FDA is doing to my food. I want to know what the government's doing with my air, my water, and the soil. And, you know, it's just great what you're doing. And I just, my kudos to you for bringing light to this subject.
Put all of the theories aside, just what geoengineers are proposing and what's being found is scary enough. So we can just address that.
And I encourage more people to just step up and ask questions and do what he's doing. So thank you, Michael, very, very much.
Aerosol spraying aluminum affects everywhere, and we have a beautiful tropical climate which I believe might be in jeopardy. So we wanted to not only come and bring the message of what people were finding around the world, but encourage people to test for the aluminum, strontium, barium. Essentially, I think it was an effective trip. I saw a lot of people here in Hawaii, in Maui, awakened, not only curious, but willing to look into this deeper, and that's my only hope.
This is one of the boldest moves, I think, from Ed Griffin yet. This is the taboo topic that nobody's supposed to talk about, and that is aerosol spraying. Now, we've got tons of documented proof of errant aerosol spraying. It just blows my mind that the whole essence of humanity has always been to look up into the sky and ask why. Though there are no limitations, there's endless space, an endless universe. Now, in the 21st century, we're not allowed to do that. Anyone who looks up and sees the giant grids and the X's in the sky that weren't part of our existence until just a decade or two ago is somehow called a kook. And the people that are the best and biggest proponents for the revolution and for liberty, they don't want you to talk about it because you could discredit them.
It seems to be an industry that's being built up to milk the taxpayers by undergoing some kind of a giant global spraying program to make all kinds of money on the project, and they don't seem to care really what effect it has. They're not trying to experiment to see if humans can survive it or anything like that. They just want to get this stuff up. And then we discover, as we're going further down the line, that there are companies generating genetically modified organisms, or seeds, modified seed crops they're being engineered to resist the aluminum in the soil. And a lot of crops won't grow in that. And so now, after they've messed up the soil, all the farmers were going to have to go back and buy seeds that have been genetically engineered to resist the aluminum that have been put into the soil. And all of a sudden, mankind is completely dependent upon these companies like Monsanto and other giant agricultural firms. You can't even grow natural seeds anymore. And we're looking at that. It's a shocking thing. I hope we don't find that that's true. But all the arrows right now are pointing in that direction.
We get into cost-benefit analysis here because there's also HAARP could be involved in this. Geoengineering, as you guys mentioned, which is documented heavily in Dennis Kucinich's bill, that is the Space Preservation Act, which, by the way, I don't think got through Congress. And then Kay Bailout, as we call her here, Kay Bailey Hutchinson, also put together some legislation in order to qualify geoengineering, which, again, is supposed to save us all from global warming. But it is cost-benefit analysis because they can benefit on so many different levels. Ed, that's how they do everything, isn't it?
That's right. And, there's an old adage, if you just follow the dollar, follow the buck, you get to the source of the problem. And it looks to me like there's a tremendously profitable industry being built up right now around this concept of geoengineering or weather modification or reducing global warming and all of these other things that can be sold fairly easily to an unsuspecting public. They all say, oh, well, that's good. We don't want global warming, And so they put up with this, and they don't question, they don't criticize. But behind the scenes, you see a whole industry being built up, which is, as I say, tremendously profitable. And the money for all of that is coming from the taxpayers. And it's a scam is basically what it is.
We're just focusing on the one area that is real easy to prove. There's no speculation in the area that we're going into. They definitely are doing this geoengineering. They definitely are talking about it. They're working up formulas for it. They're putting together strategies for it. They've got funding for it. Everything is in place. We don't even have to go into those other areas to make the case. Okay, let them believe that, but at least they must understand that there's no question that they're talking about it and planning to do it. And so shouldn't they be equally alarmed about what they're going to do if it can be shown that barium and aluminum and some of these other toxic metals are very destructive to the planet and destructive to human health? Isn't that enough? How many issues do we need to crank into this? And so, if you're going to kill the planet and kill the population, do we need any other reason to be alarmed?
What in the world are they spraying? Thank God people are asking this question. That's all we want. We just want to be able to ask these questions. Our good friend G. Edward Griffin, all these years, Mike Murphy and Paul Wittenberg are doing this great effort with your help. This is a community effort to get people real information. What in the world are they spraying? Any final quick comments before we're out of time?
And my only final thought is that we asked the question, what in the world are they spraying? And we now know what it is. And folks, you're not going to like it.
I'm Peter Vreke. I'm from Belgium. I'm 54 years old. I can't believe it myself. I'm a very happy and grateful person.
We are doing the job the police or the justice department or the environmental department should have been doing. And it's really essential that it's going to be a grassroots revolution. I think so. God is on our side because we are not fighting against, but for.
Yes, we're fighting for.
I was in the council for about 25 years and also a period as the mayor. So from that moment on, 10 years ago, everything started to change. I start to get a picture of what is really going on. And it became crystal clear to me that we, humankind, have been manipulated and dominated and exploited for centuries. And this chemtrail phenomenon made me angry because I was so helpless. You can decide what food you're going to eat, whether you're going to smoke, what water you're going to drink, what kind of life you're going to lead, but not with this phenomenon. Then you are just a victim. It's only a game. And there have to be good guys, and there have to be bad guys. And luckily, we are in the position to be able to play the role of the good guy who has the chance and the opportunity to overcome.
3 days that we shared with them, my heart just dropped because it was such a beautiful way to live and such a peaceful way to live. I left thinking, what's this going to be like in 10 years? Is everything going to be killed off on their property? And if it is, how are they going to get their food source? Are they going to have to take a class, and get certified by company XYZ? And what are the requirements for that? And that really is the end of freedom. I'm concerned about that. I definitely, I really am. Yeah.
I learned to say everything is now as it has to be now. And everything is going to be okay.
It's going to be all right.
It's going to be okay.
Yes.
I have this deep feeling that in the end we will prevail because we have the right on our side. The cosmos is helping us. And I have this strong feeling that we are being supported by entities and by forces we can't even imagine. Here for the first time we have this scientific proof that we are being spread. We are being spread, and it's incredible and it's hard to believe, but we are being spread. I think at this moment to stop is not an option. Once you know it and once you have a tool like this and an opportunity like this, that the issue of chemtrails or persistent jet contrails or whatever name you use for it, that this phenomenon is recognized as being real, publicly debated on. In the context of geoengineering, I think it's high noon to bring this to the public.
This is what the sky is supposed to look like. These are old paintings. We forgot this, I'm afraid. In the years that I have been a medical research journalist, I have looked at many things, and I found the same three issues in whatever I'm looking at. And that is that we are being dumbed down, we are being made sicker, and we are being made infertile.
Citizens gathered from around the world in Belgium for the first International Chemtrail Symposium. The event attracted leading professionals, politicians, and activists who discussed the health, environmental, and social implications of these programs.
Today it's only going to be about facts, documents, figures, patents, licenses, everything that brings us to the truth.
We have no other weapon against this vast complex than exposing and bringing their dark works in the light of the truth. We have the hope that by our efforts, more and more people will become aware of the fact that we are deceived by our leaders. So today, we, as a family, join forces with the people who publicly made known to the world that chemtrails are not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy fact.
From the Technische Universiteit Delft in the Netherlands. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Koen Vermeeren.
Well, I'm Koen Vermeeren. I'm a university professor of Delft University of Technology.
Usually people are with their heads to the ground in their own two-dimensional space and they don't look up. But if you do, you see more and more spaces like this. And it worried me too. I have no explanations to our students about these phenomena.
And then I studied it myself and I found out that I couldn't give them the answers they wanted, because I think that the phenomenon is not natural. It's not natural what is happening, and the explanations that are given to us are not enough for me.
If you look at them from a scientific point of view, the first thing a scientist does is trying to explain something. Because I'm smart and my students are not as smart yet, so I have to give them answers to questions. But if you ask most scientists, honestly, they cannot answer all your questions.
If people are using climate control over our heads, I want to know about it. I want to know the consequences, I want to know the health impact, I want to know everything. I need, as a teacher in my university, to give answers to my students. And they have good questions. And I don't have the answers, and I want to know.
Excellent.
And we should discuss this.
Ladies and gentlemen, for here you in the auditorium and for all over the world, Michael Murphy.
Well, thank you very much. It's definitely an honor to be here in Belgium. The people who are in power control everything. They control the markets, they control us. Now they're even controlling the weather. And they can use that for warfare applications. The one thing that they cannot control is what God had originally made, and that's natural organic seeds. This is called the Hegelian dialect. It's called problem, reaction, solution. The problem here is massive amounts of aluminum, things starting to die. The solution is company X that says, hey man, you're not getting yields on your crop. Everything's dying. But I got the solution, I got a seed that will grow in this environment. The only problem is, now you have to start buying from me. We're a little concerned that maybe part of this agenda could be to kill off anything that's natural and organic and re-engineer it with aluminum-resistant GMO seeds.
Many may know we just got back from a week of filming in Hawaii, and it was an incredible trip. A big concern for the people there is they're beginning to see softening of the coconut trees. But their concern is that these programs may again be part of a broader agenda to destroy anything that's natural and organic, so that the corporate redesigned GMO foods might be the only source of food for people.
I didn't anticipate so many people, young and old, who are interested in this phenomenon and are concerned about it. And I especially liked the address that the young girl gave today. Only 17 and already making an address to the audience. That is, well, incredible.
My name is Sofia Xenidis. I am 17 years old. It is quite scary to know that the air we breathe is not what it's supposed to be. That the food we eat and the water we drink contain traces of those substances which are sprayed out over all of us as though we were being poisoned like insects. The feeling that this is causing me are feelings of deep anger and rage. I don't want to be poisoned. I don't want to be infected with cancer. And I'm just so angry that this global poisoning can be going on such a massive scale, and not enough is being done to stop this crime.
A clear answer to one question. Are we being sprayed? Have we been sprayed? And is it their intention to spray again and again? What are we going to do about it? How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to stop it? I know the answer. There is only one person who can stop it. And you know it. You are. You are the person, the one you have been waiting for. We are magnificent, beautiful, godlike, divine human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, in this auditorium and in the whole world, thank you so very much for being present with us. And for now, please enjoy this anthem.
So, anyway, I'm glad that the weather's been good for you fellas so far. Just think if we were doing this in the wintertime, you might, if you're going to Washington, D.C., you might run into snow.
Thank God we're not.
That's right.
You know, it's interesting because of the different weather modification programs. There's something like, I think, right around 32 in the continental U.S. alone going on. So the theory is that geoengineering is in part weather modification.
You know, Mike, that's a very good point. There are so many subsets connected with this issue of geoengineering. People are writing to us all the time with information about the connection to global warming, the connection to weather modification. Some people think there's a connection with Morgellons disease. Others think it's kind of a means of transmitting electromagnetic impulses from the HAARP antenna system up in Alaska and Siberia. Boy, it gets your head spinning. And each area, I think, is worthy of investigation, but we have so little time. I think it's wise for us to stay focused on just the aerospraying and the toxic effect of these chemicals and the destruction of the planet and the damage to human health. What more do you need than that to convince people that we have to put a stop to it? So to stay focused, I think, is our mission on this one.
Jeremy, we had an idea. We know that you know the political system real well. Our idea was this. We have a ton of data and information that we've collected throughout our travels, and you know, we really think a good way to end the film would be addressing this to elected officials, some of the senators. So we were wondering this, if you might be able to come and kind of help us out and perhaps show us the way in how to get this done politically.
But it sounds like a really good idea, and I'm also going to get to, in terms of researching who it is that we should really focus on talking to about this. At the very least, if we could make it impossible for them to claim that they don't know at this point, we can strip away their plausible deniability that they haven't heard of the data that points to geoengineering stratospheric aerosol operation already going on. At the very least, it should be very interesting to go to District of Criminality and put some people on alert.
Yeah, you have a lot of enemies in Washington. That's where all the power comes together and the money, you know. So there are people there, I'm sure, that just don't want us to do this job. But I'm glad you're going, and you'll find out.
We took the data to Washington, D.C. There we presented our elected officials with the following letter. According to the 5th article of the Bill of Rights amending the Constitution for the United States of America, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. But the daily spraying is depriving all persons living within the United States of life, health, liberty, and integrity of our common and private property without due process of law. As a representative of the people of the United States of America, we insist that you do everything in your power to protect us and immediately put a stop to geoengineering spraying at once. There exists no justification, legal or otherwise, to poison the planet and its inhabitants.
Now suppose that space aliens arrived on, maybe they're going to land at the UN headquarters down the road here, or maybe they'll pick a smarter spot. But suppose they arrive and they give you a box, and the box has 2 knobs. One knob is the knob for controlling global temperature, maybe another knob is a knob for controlling CO2 concentrations. You might imagine that we would fight wars over that box, because we have no way to agree about where to set the knobs. No global governance, And different people will have different places they want it set. Solar engineering is like chemotherapy. No one wants it. But we all want the ability to do chemo and to understand its risks, should we find ourselves with dangerous cancer.
How long does it last up there?
The lifetimes are years.
What, years?
A couple years.
And then it what, precipitates out, or?
Yeah, that's correct.
No toxic side effects that we know of?
The thing we always wonder about is the unknown unknown.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about, say, the acidification, it's clear that's not a problem. There's several studies that showed that.
Right.
But of course the concern here is with so little research, there may be some unknown that comes out of left field that bites us.
My name's Mike Murphy. I'm a filmmaker in from Los Angeles. We're covering an issue called geoengineering. Okay, thanks guys. Senator, a question about the issue of geoengineering.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
And wondering if you were supportive of geoengineers' proposals of spraying 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere.
I should really get a briefing paper on it before I give an opinion.
Oh, not a problem. Are you aware of the issue?
Not completely.
At all? Okay. Do you have a letter from constituents, and people have concerns?
Yeah,
We're making a documentary about the
I don't know. You guys have credentials to be here?
Yes. Yes, we do. We pass through security as well.
Endowed by our creator.
I think so.
Please don't touch that. Please don't touch my property.
You're lying.
No, why? What did we lie? What did we lie about, sir?
No, we're not.
What are we lying about? Lying about what?
That's a little unusual, huh?
I haven't heard that.
Okay. You're not aware of it? And it appears that these programs have already been deployed.
You know, I haven't looked at that proposal, and so, why don't you let me review it?
I can do that. Are you aware of?
Actually, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and get that. I will take a look at this, and I will act accordingly.
General, this program, this openly covert program of the aerosol spraying, stratospheric aerosol spraying, geoengineering, using tons of aluminum, spraying it up in the sky.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Commonly called chemtrail, sir.
When you were the head of NEMA, did you see the aerosol trails?
Mike Murphy, filmmaker in Los Angeles.
Hi, sir.
And we're covering an issue called geoengineering, and wanted to know if you're supportive of geoengineers' proposals. Congressman?
Hey, Congressman.
I'm wondering if you're supportive of geoengineers' proposals, which is dumping 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere.
Pardon?
Okay.
You make an appointment to my office.
I'm not supportive. I haven't looked at it close, so I don't.
Have you heard of the issue? Because it's becoming mainstream in public, and there are actually congressional committees which are being formed to talk about these programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think when we drop anything into the atmosphere, we should know prior to the effect of that, right?
Yes.
And if we don't have the knowledge as to what the effect will be, we shouldn't do it.
I think there are 4 different options for thinking about deployment of geoengineering. The first one would be we just ban it.
I would argue that one does not want to get too firm a restriction in place on small-scale studies early on because it'll tie the science hands. I think what the science community ought to be trying to do is say, you do small-scale stuff inside this space, and it's a scientific question what that space ought to be. There shouldn't be a lot of oversight and restriction.
Congressman? Excuse me. Hi, I'm Mike Murphy from Los Angeles, covering an issue called geoengineering. These guys are running from the geoengineering issue. I wonder why.
I'd have to talk to my staff. I don't know what your details on that are.
Have anyone made you aware of the issue, or? Sir?
Congressman, your committee talked about geoengineering last November. Are you in support of those proposals? I'd love to give you a paper.
Which? Geoengineering? You know nothing about the geoengineering issue?
Never heard of
They call it geoengineering, but
yeah, I never heard of it. It's nothing I've ever heard anything about.
I mean, when we looked up in the air today outside, you see we saw this stuff going on.
Quickly, have you heard of geoengineering?
No.
The proposal is to shoot 10 million tons of metals into the air. This committee, Science and Technology, covered it for the first time. No,
I've never heard of it.
So we were very concerned. We spoke with Congresswoman Watson's office, and her press secretary, Ms. White, was familiar with Representative Kucinich's Space Preservation Act, which mentioned chemtrails and the weaponization of the atmosphere and space, and then it was pressured to be taken off the bill.
Did you see the aerosol spraying going on today over the Capitol?
Congressman?
Geoengineering carries with it a tremendous range of uncertainties, ethical and political concerns, and the potential for catastrophic environmental side effects.
He's not one to do interviews very often, not unless we usually really pressure him into it.
Okay.
So don't, all that is, don't hold your breath.
As chairman of the Committee of Jurisdiction, I feel a responsibility to begin a public dialogue and develop a record on geoengineering.
We want to know if you're supportive of their measures by spraying 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere?
No, I think we need to have more research.
Okay. And about the issue of current deployment, there's literally a mountain of evidence that many people believe proves the deployment of these programs. Any knowledge of that?
No, there's certainly not a mountain of evidence, but I do support research into geoengineering, and I also support looking into the international governance of that.
Okay.
I hope anybody that has studied it knows, at least I think, that it's a radical proposal, and I hope we don't have to use it, but there may come that point in time where we do.
Now, if we could provide you with the evidence that suggests that these programs are and have been ongoing, would you be willing to address this publicly?
We've had about 3 or 4 hearings on it. We have addressed them publicly.
Well, not about the proposals, but about the current deployment of these programs. Citizens.
I don't support the current deployment. I think we need to have more research, and they have consequences that go beyond one nation. And so I think that there needs to be governance to that.
Governance is not simply an issue of deployment, but governance before deployment in terms particularly of large-scale scientific fieldwork.
I concede that on this subject and in general, it's not popular to talk about global rules.
And when these people started talking about the need for UN Security Council oversight, a supranational environmental security enforcement with a strong mandate by the UN, it really was clear that they're looking for a global power behind the manipulation of the environment.
But I do think it needs to be sort of an international kind of treaty that does tie and bind all nations into a common fate. It is a common fate.
And unfortunately, it's not just big governments that could do this. It is small governments. It is billionaires probably could figure, I'm going to save the world all by myself, and I won't bother to mention it.
How do we decide when there's a planetary emergency? Whose hand is on the thermostat? How do we decide when to start it? There's no way to do that right now. And what if we do start doing it, and then by some problem with the technology or with the will, we can no longer do it? In a year or two, the aerosols will come out of the atmosphere and temperatures will shoot up at a rate much faster than it's going up now. And it's that rate of change that's hard for us to adapt to. So once we start it, we'll be sort of locked into doing it for a long, long time. And so with basically no end in sight.
Boeing would pursue this to make a profit, right? I mean, there's financial motivation to do this.
Let's see. So let me not speak for Boeing.
Is that allowed? Okay.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
No, but it's someday if the U.S. is going to decide to do this stuff, they're going to look to a company who can do it, and you want to be positioned. Boeing would rather get it than Lockheed Martin.
So certainly we have an industrial base that helps the country take on technologies and large-scale challenges like national defense. And we do that both for a profit motive as well as, I think, as a national service. So
I think it would be truly disastrous if You know, we discovered a few years from now that there was a black program that some government had stood up to sort of learn on the quiet how to do this.
It's pretty clear you can cool the planet, but you will not and cannot bring it back to exactly the same climate state you started with. So you may or may not, and I expect we'll have a lot of back and forth about how useful it is to ameliorate the risks of climate change. I think there's a good evidence it probably is useful, but we don't know. But it certainly can't get you back to exactly the climate you started with. I think everybody agrees with that.
Do you think you'll see deployment in our lifetime?
Let me say I hope not.
Al?
I would agree. I hope not.
I hope not. Okay.
I see this as something like an evacuation plan. That you build big dikes. Maybe that's the emissions reduction to try to keep the flood from wiping you out. But that if that flood should come, that you'd like a plan for what to do in the event of that catastrophe. So I see these options more as a catastrophic response option and not as a way to reduce risk of everyday climate change.
You would advocate mitigating consumption of beef as a means of accomplishing your objective?
Yes.
How would you suggest going about that?
You can't. I mean, it's your job to decide what to tax and what not to tax. Obviously, if you wanted people to behave differently, you give them incentives and disincentives for behavior. But
I'm sure that's the answer you wanted to hear, Mr. Smith.
If only my time had not expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Because there's literally aluminum and barium contamination found around the world, believed to be from these programs.
Like, look, today over the Capitol looks like they're deploying some type of aerosol. Did you see it?
No, I didn't, but good to see you.
In a James Bond scenario, some rogue rich guy puts some airplanes in the air and seeds the clouds. What is to prevent that?
Okay, are you aware of the issue? You do it through the...
Are you in support of those proposals? What is your take?
I don't know anything about it.
You're not.
I have to get more information. I've got a chair here.
Okay, we'll give you a letter on that.
Yeah, this is a letter from constituents.
Okay, great.
Excellent. And many people believe that these programs have already been deployed because mass contamination has been found. Geoengineering programs, stratospheric.
Got it.
Yeah. Spraying from airplanes.
Okay.
So what is happening? People from around the world are finding contamination.
Let me take care of this and I'll talk to you when I come back. I'll be back. He's here, Mike.
Thank you very much.
We see that even though we might make the average temperature of the planet about right, the rainfall patterns change some from today. And some places become warmer and some places become cooler. So there are going to be winners and losers in this geoengineering activity if we were to do it. But nevertheless, as David has said, there are reasons why we might consider doing it.
Many people are deeply concerned about it because of the toxicity of aluminum, and it has been addressed to Congress in various committees. Would you take a look at a letter from some of your constituents addressing the concerns?
Excuse me if I go.
Okay. Can I give you a letter from constituents? Are you aware of their proposals of dumping? Gotcha. Thanks.
Well, I'm not familiar with it, so I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. Well, geoengineers are proposing just that, dumping aluminum and barium into the atmosphere.
Why would they do that? Aluminum's a precious metal we can use.
Well, the stated goal is to actually cool the planet. However, there's a...
Sounds strange.
Right, exactly. So they're proposing dumping these metals into the air to block the sun, essentially. We're here to just find out what members of Congress are.
I hope we would have a strong hearing on that before we decide to do.
I would hope so. And there's plenty of evidence that not only suggests that these programs have been deployed, because we're finding contamination of aluminum and barium on the rain, snow, and soil.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
LA County has seen a 200% increase of Alzheimer's over the last decade. Tons of ground and water samples showing high levels of aluminum all around our state.
Why don't you give me all the information you have? I have some very good people I will assign it to.
Okay.
And if you get it to Mr. Lavelle, we will
He's
get
got
it
my
to
card
the
and
right...
send me an email and we'll take a look at it.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
We are investigating this, and there's literally a mountain of evidence that suggests that these
Okay,
programs are
move
going
that
on.
mountain over to us.
You
Let's
got it.
take a look at it.
And look up,
Thank
keep
you.
looking up into the sky, and you'll see some of it.
Oh, okay.
You will. You can
All
see
right.
the aerosols being sprayed out of airplanes quite a bit.
Okay.
So thank you. Yeah, the future of humanity is definitely dependent on it. So we're counting on people like yourself to take some proactive steps. So thank you very much, guys.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Right.
A lot of Congress was running down the hallways to avoid answering any questions, looking for doors in the hallways. So apparently the war is against all of us, and we're all in a hostage crisis. People who took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution are not only know this is happening, are participating in this. And all of us have a duty to stand up and speak out about it. Why is the water being contaminated? Why is the soil being contaminated? Why are aluminum-related diseases going up? And it's affecting all of us, and thus we all have the duty to stand up and speak out and get educated and stop this. For our own sake, for our children's sake, it is a crucial moment in history right now. The human beings, we need to decide whether to live on our knees while being sprayed and poisoned every day, while being under a continual threat, or whether we are going to stand up and live as free human beings and seek truth, justice, peace, and freedom for all of God's children.
So as you can see, we're ending our film here in Washington, D.C. We've made many public officials aware of this. Most of them either denied any knowledge of this, or they simply were unwilling to address the situation with us. So as you can see right behind the White House, we do have aerosols behind us. The spraying has continued. What is the solution? Is the solution here in Washington, D.C.? Clearly, this is one of the solutions, but the solution is not only here, the solution is within you. This issue affects all of us so deeply. So you need to look inside. Please get active, get involved, start spreading the word with growing awareness. About 90% of the population, we believe, is unaware of this issue, which means 90% of the people who normally might do something if they knew are not doing anything because they are unaware. So please look into your heart, use whatever skill you have to get the word out. The future of humanity is dependent upon it.